This is Kenya's the number one opera in the world, according to Foreign. You're watching Foreign channel, that are also known as the number one existence fan in the world.
Right, this is going to be another one of my Patreon donated discussions. People donate $100 or more can participate potentially in a discussion with me each month. So, got an interesting group here. Some of the people who were here on the last one, nice little size of people as well. So, you know how I like to do it. I like to sort of just open the floor. We just see where we go and keep it fun, keep it moving. So does anyone have a burning topic they want to start us off with?
How does Mousesports get out of the trash bin? What happened?
I have a kind of my own take on this, actually, as ever. So I want to hear what some other people think, actually. Who else is in the CS who wants to give your thoughts on, like, what do you think Mouse's issues are?
I'd love to.
Do it.
Like, I think one of the main issues that Mouse are having right now is the fact that every single one of them is in a different country. Well, besides Ragen and Kerrigan. You know, watching some of the events, you could see Big are in kind of a LAN setup, which makes sense to me since they can see each other's screens, like to the right and to the left physically. Whereas Mousesports, I don't think they have the same setup, at least based on the pictures they uploaded to Instagram. It seems like every single one of them is in a different country. So I think that's a massive benefactor to the fact that they're shit right now. And maybe because all of their, well, in a LAN environment, I guess the communication becomes a little bit more manageable since, I don't know, it just makes a little bit more sense to me that if you're in a LAN environment, your communication would be better. So I think that would probably impact the fact that they're not exactly on the same page, probably the same, like, in the game. That would be my take on it.
All right. Anyone else want to jump in?
Honestly, that just like opened up my perspective, thinking about how big are all together in one room, and you see that, like, obviously. And I didn't know that Mousesports was all that separate, but I don't know. I don't know exactly how that impacts it. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about them, Duncan.
I mean, I would say one thing that people actually might be surprised by, I'd say go look this up if you want. Mousesports wasn't that good online last year. Like, one of their issues they had, I mean, even once they'd sort of gotten good, was like, put it this way, did you see them at ECS finals? They didn't make it. They didn't qualify, guys. Like, there's a whole bunch of tournaments. You can go and look it up. Like, they were just getting knocked out by, like, a Vanguard Virtus Pro. They were losing to the Heroic who'd already lost Blame F. These guys were getting tooled. Like, this is actually sad if you go and look up some of these. They were losing to Crazy back when they had the old lineup for all the major. That's why they weren't at ESL New York. Like, they were missing tons of lands because if they had to qualify online, they just weren't making it most times, believe it or not. Like, they weren't good enough. So I would say the interesting thing to me is what I like about their team and why I think they were so exceptional at the end of last year is they are like a LAN team. Like, they have their players. Like, if you know the personality of someone like Woxic, it's funny that he's Turkish, so people are going to think like him and all the other ones like Kalix and Santa, they're all onliners. It's like Woxic is the opposite of an onliner. Like, I think if he only had to play online, he wouldn't even be considered a great player. Like, I think he's one of those guys where he has to be in a fight, a real fight, before he gets going. You might have seen it on LAN. He's not the guy who just goes like Ziwu and Simple and just carries every game. It's like even in the series that they were really good, he has a map where he just takes the map off. And then when he has that map off, Rops better be godlike, Frozen better do his job, Carrigan better call a great T-side, otherwise they lose. But then you get to the map where Woxic's good, on LAN, in a scenario where it's hyper, then he'll go, that's when he's mustard. He comes out, he delivers, he's really good. So none of that exists online. Like, one of the problems I think exists is look at the teams that are slumping the hardest the last few months. Fnatic, Mousesports, Na'Vi, maybe even FaZe. These are all the LAN teams. These are the teams stacked with players who they do it on LAN. Like, that's where they live. So I don't think these players mentally have been able to frame what they're doing online. Like, they really, this is a point I made on my Counterpoint episode I've got in the can already. I think these players believe, like we all did, oh, this will last a month. You know what? This will just be one tournament. Whatever. We lost to Heretics. Who are they? We'd beat them on LAN. And they've basically been using cognitive dissonance to never address their problems. Because the real issue is this. Now, when you've seen how many months we are into the lockdown, I think if you're a responsible team, you should plan for the rest of the year to be online and therefore to be no major. So essentially, you should plan that this period will define whether you are in Mousesports next year or not. And I tell you what, a lot of those teams haven't done that, especially because they know, listen, if there had been a LAN next month, nobody's cutting Flusher or fucking Frozen or Woxic or none of anyone Flamey. These guys aren't getting cut if you could go to a LAN next month and they might actually suddenly be good again. So at the moment, they've kind of gotten away with just what they've done in the past. But I have to say, we have to count what's happening online now, because here's the way I would explain it. Even though each of the tournaments is having different results, the good teams are still getting a result. Mousesports themselves had one ages back when they were second in Pro League. Each team should still be... You can lose occasionally, yes. There's higher variance. It's not like it's purely random, though. Like, to me, I'm not joking. The fact that Complexity and Big have done so well in these last couple of tournaments... That isn't a joke. When I was talking shit on the Heretics of the world, they don't win the tournament, dude. They come fourth. Like, that's the miracle run to them. If you win the tournament, there's probably something there. So what I would say is, I do think mentally they're in totally the wrong place. I think it's an interesting variable, the idea they're all in different countries, they don't have any boot camp vibe like some of the other squads do. I'd also throw in there as well, everyone's going to look at the stars, because that's what you do. It's one of the reasons why you get to be celebrated as a star, because if you win the game, we go, that was you. Well, if you lose the game, we go, that was you. So people look at Woxic, look at Rose, and they go, these players playing as well as they could. I'll tell you the depressing one, and this is where I'm going to keep my eye. This is going to be the barometer for me, is Chris J. Because in the online era, Chris J has been actually appalling. I'm not talking about like, oh, you're not watching the game story. Like, he plays a supportive role and sets him up. No. He was doing all that before. It's just that, first of all, his numbers have gone off a cliff while doing the same things. If you look at his performances, he looks like he's absolutely, I won't say washed, because I don't believe he's done necessarily, but he's done at this moment. Like, he's playing really, really bad. And that could be a million factors, but whatever it is, I'll also say there's another team that people aren't giving credit to is probably burned to a crisp. Remember, they also played every tournament at the end of last year because they were making the finals of all of them. They had like that crazy schedule where people forget, I think 3 or 4 of the finals they were in a month and a half span. Like, that is inhuman. And the problem is, 4 tournaments in that span's inhuman. Forget making the final. That means you play every game. So you add in that the online era makes you play more games. I think these guys are toast. So personally, I hope the player break, that's what I'm hoping for them. And then eventually get back to LAN. But I do think they might... Put it this way, the other thing is they've had the LAN for a long time. I feel like they're probably going to have to make a roster move eventually. It's just an inevitability. So we'll see if they can pull a miracle out for a couple of the players, but probably someone has to come in and change it up, because Mousesports before, it's not like they were dominant when they won these tournaments. Let's be real. Like, they would win in epic 3-game series. They would win with an amazing... Woxic would have to win a 1v5 at elimination point to keep you in the tournament. They weren't dominating. So if that's like getting everything out of everyone... If anyone has a plummet, you're going to go way down the rankings. And as we see in the online era, there's teams that you don't even expect that can come in and give you that business. So I think that's a pretty good sort of smorgasbord of reasons, I think. I would put a lot down to that. Obviously, again, we're having to speculate heavily because it's not LAN, so we can't really take a lot of the strong conclusions we normally do. Does anyone want to move to another topic?
I would also like
chuck it in. Come on.
For this topic as well is just the question is, what was their regimen before in the offline era, and have they adjusted it? Because, like, for example, when you were listening to the League of Legends team, like, the only time that they're online would be the scrims, yeah. And now when they moved into fully online for competition, loads of teams basically were saying it's like, when we were playing the serious matches because they were playing from home, they felt like it was training, so they weren't taking it as seriously. So the question would be for like the teams that were slumping. First of all, like the Fnatic's Mousesports, like, before, how many online matches did they have to play? Because, they were usually getting invites to some of these tournaments. So, and if they don't qualify for one tournament, it's like, well, there is shitloads of them that for the rest of the year. So, and now, if they have to play online, in the back of their mind, do they realize necessarily that it's the serious match, that it's not training or boot camp and stuff like that, that might also impact their performance. And I was just looking at it. Yeah, it was exactly 28 days. The Asia Championship was 24th of November, and then the epicenter was 22nd of December. So it was just 2 days short of a month for finals.
I mean, like I say, I think a lot of teams, they just can't mentally adapt to being in this scenario. You see it, here's the best example of where you see it, is I often make this point on counterpoints, because I feel like everyone else disregards it, right? When you see those teams, a best example now would be like North. And when they go to the tier 1 LAN, where it has the top 10 teams in the world, they have to battle, but you know what? They'll show at least one game that looks good against the top team. And so you'll think, you know what? If that was the top 10, yeah, they're probably 12th, right? But when you put them, like last year, into a DreamHack Open, where nobody's top 10, and you're supposed to be 12, and everyone else there is like 16, 21, 28, 35, 55, like you have it, like logic you would think means I'm just going to tool these guys. I'm going to win this LAN easy. Most of the time they don't even win the LAN because again, they need, essentially, this is the big problem I've always thought with improving. There's a lot of people out there who could improve if you just gave them like Roger Federer as their tennis partner, if they're a tennis player. The real guy who's going to be the best ever is the guy who can take player number 1000 and find meaningful practice against him and adapt his game to beat him and play differently when he plays Roger Federer. That's one of the problems I see out there. It's why I always reference this classic piece of advice Lurpus gave back when he used to be a pro player, because I think it's so true and I think so many teams have missed it, which is that when you're just playing like the open qualifier, when you're just playing teams you don't even know, why not just actually play to your strengths in terms of skill? Why not just take a different approach? If you're a super tactical team, don't waste your time running tactics. Tactics work against top teams when you have an idea what they're doing. They don't just work against random teams from Russia that you've never played before. Like, you'd actually be better off essentially reframing your expectations. So yeah, in this case, I think a lot of people, let's be real, when we go offline, it won't matter what happened now. It's just that right now it matters a lot. And so it could affect your career big time. Do we want to move to something else? By the way, just as a heads up, let's keep it about esports. Nothing stupid and political. We're not doing that.
Yeah. I have a related topic. So basically,
all right.
Mouse is now in the HLTV ranks number 12 with 600 points, which is quite high. So there's like a huge compression. Number 1 is G2 with 812. So how do you see this as a scene, like 12 teams here, not that far away from each other? Obviously.
What was the gap difference, did you say?
It's 200 points, so from 600 to 800. Whereas in Jan, Astralis at 1,000, then Liquid was started with 570. So
right, the big problem with that is, first of all, this is one element I despise about the HLTV system. What I would much rather they do is have an absolute value. In the same way as in StarCraft, we had an ELO rating. And so as a result, by the way, one of the coolest things about that is then you get historical elements that are really meaningful. Like, for example, when Flash was the best in StarCraft Brood War, he broke every ELO record. Yep. So that means the greatest players before him, Savior, Nard, everyone, like that means that, listen, it doesn't mean he's better, but it means that like he accomplished things they couldn't. Now, like you say, whoever's number one's like 1,000 or whatever, around that level, and then they like sort of like there's a ratio, like you can't go above 1,000. So the problem to that, to me, is it's Astralis that showed this system doesn't work, because Astralis won like what, at one point in time, like 80% of the trophies. So if they're 1,000 and someone else can be 1,000, probably way less than that. Yeah, it's a bit silly because the only effect is it's who's going to be second and where they are, right? So the problem in that sense is I get why HLTV thinks it's good because they want to show that, like, look, if the gap was 600 for Astralis, they were super dominant. It's like, yeah, but what happens to the other teams? So if anything, I think where the points are now, it's actually a reasonable indicator of the scene. I will say, never forget, HLTV uses a way, way more extended decay system than anyone with a brain does. As in, if you talk about how good Mouse is now, you're not thinking, and of course, I'm going to say part of my judgment of how good they are now is 10% of what they did in November. No, who gives a fuck about November? That was ages ago, mate. Like, but that's what the HLTV point system does. So as a result, you get certain teams. I mean, you've had them be number one in some of these scenarios, especially on the ESL rankings where they have their own weird predilections to how they rank things. Like, to me, it's like, what is the point of the rankings? So here's the thing. I've made this point before because it's a point actually that Ulrich from ESL made to me. I think it's a very shrewd one. My rankings, where it's a 3-month moving window, and the second, like 1 day after you won the major, but it's now 3 months and 1 day, you get nothing for the major. You have to have done something since then to be someone today. So my ranking tries to tell you what's the most reasonable level of this team over the last few months? Because that's, for me, the most interesting sort of barometer. What the HLTV ranking is doing is telling you how was this team over the last year, and obviously I'm not going to skew too much at the early period, but I'm still going to count it so that if I want to do if I want to invite someone to a tournament in 2 months from now, and I invite someone who's number 5, it doesn't matter that they just lost the last 2 tournaments. That's a good gamble. They were number 5 over the last year or so. Hey, I can invite that team. I can feel reasonably comfortable. So it's a difference of, do you want to know how good they are almost now or over the last year? And that's what HLTV is trying to do. So I think what you see in the rankings, if we then take the same logic, is, you know what, Fnatic, Mousesports, all the rest of it, they haven't just disappeared completely. They're not 30, which they would be in mine. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean? Like, they'd definitely drop heavily. But it's more that you're seeing that in the meantime, my problem with the online era is almost every vaguely top team has had like a top 4 finish in the last 4 months or 5 months, right? So as a result, they've all shared it out. The parity is ridiculous. So yeah, again, there's another factor here, which is my biggest problem with every ranking that is points-based, and everyone should think about this when they rush to say they want points-based, is it cannot take into account qualitative analysis. So I don't care if the same teams are at CS Summit that are at IM Katowice. IM Katowice has to matter in a different way that is intangible, but we all feel it. We can all sense it. Hopefully, if we're articulate, we can explain it sort of, but you can't write it down in a mathematical formula. So it's where, in a sense, I've always said this, I am biased. I'm hella biased because I'm biased to my opinion. But it's not like my opinion was just, I don't pick my opinion based on who I like. I pick it based on things. What do I model the game on? What do I think was good? Is this player with the same stats as this other guy better? HLTV can't tell you that. They can't tell you if the guy has inflated stats. They can't tell you if the guy with bad stats is better than they think they are. They think they can when they had the KST scores and the rating, etc. But that's just the wizard behind the curtain telling, pay no attention, there's no one behind it, it's just a machine doing it all. It's like, who programmed the machine? Come on. So I would just say that on that whole topic. Like, it's confusing, but if you know what the rankings are for, they serve their purpose. Like I always said, if you base the seedings for a tournament off the HLT rankings, you probably do a good job. In fact, this is where you can tell how uncertain this era has been. You saw for CS Summit, everyone was complaining about the groups in Europe. These are unfair. Just go look where the teams are ranked. You're wrong. What's happening is this. Everyone sees the name Mouse and Fnatic and they think these are monsters. They're not. Have you not been watching the last 2 months? These teams are struggling. It's a bit like the ultimate team for this for me was if you went back into Astralis' era, 2018, and I made a group for you like this. The group is NRG, Astralis, NIP, and MIBR. People will be like, oh, god damn, this is the group of death. It's like, it's not. You're seeing the names NIP and thinking of years ago. You see an MIBR and thinking of years ago. Who are those teams now? Like at the same period of time, if you had a team like Renegades would be a good example, they might be better. They might actually be a better team. But the problem is you see the name Renegades, your brain goes, team that barely ever makes the playoffs, probably never do anything. So this is the problem with branding power, I'd say. It's the same reason why in the past, as much as everyone complained, you don't want to invite Virtus Pro to every event when they're bad, right? The name Virtus Pro isn't what's going to turn up. The players who play now are going to turn up. So I'd say that's my take on it. Anyone else want to jump in on that angle? What do you think of the rankings at the moment?
How does the HLTV decide how much is a tournament worth?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Okay.
Unfortunately, mate, they're not Here's the thing about HLTV that has been my number one gripe from day one.
There is
right?
no formula.
When I get information, when I get key information that people need to make good analysis, I give them it. I'm totally transparent. You compete with me. I give you the information, then I give you my thoughts. You have the same information as me. You don't have some behind the scenes stuff, but even then I try to reveal it through anonymous sources, and then we can all make up our minds. What HLTV does, and if you know the owners, you'd know totally why this is, they think they own that information. They think that because they gathered it, it's their information. And so as a result, you're not working for them. You don't paid them. Why do you deserve behind the scenes access? Why do you deserve all the stats? So all you get is the output. You can see the points, but you don't know how that was calculated. You don't know what is a prestige. I'll give credit to ESL in this sense. ESL made themselves look silly because they revealed it. You can go onto the ESL ranking, click on a tournament, and you see how many points they gave it, what tier they put it in, what the tier's worth, how many points to K. You see it all. You see everything. Now, they didn't do a great job, so it's making them look silly. But everyone just, like I say, it's a religious belief that HLTV's system is fair and is totally unbiased and is legit because These guys have never done it. Like, they've always hidden, like, whenever anyone praises their stats system, I'll give them credit in as much as we didn't have much before that. And we certainly don't have a site that was doing as much regularly anyway. But they're the most basic stats you could ever ask for. There aren't advanced statistics on there. They take years to reveal little details, and then they hold like a ticker tape parade when they put one little detail on there. If you've had access, like I have, to the custom, not for the public, like you have to license them if you're a team, programs out there that calculate stats and stuff. They make like HLTV stat system look like Duplo. Does anyone know what Duplo is? It's like the children's version of Lego. The blocks are way bigger. There's barely any combos, and it's for a little kid that doesn't even know shapes. Like, they're like the most basic thing there. So if that's your world, like everyone on Reddit who thinks that they're like, oh, I'm a stats expert, so I'm comparing the rating to another one. It's like, you're not comparing anything, mate. Like, you're comparing, like that's like me taking like two polls where it's like hottest woman in Britain, and I'm like, see, she's won because she's got more votes. It's like, you didn't do any analysis. You didn't use any metrics. You had no model. You just took two numbers and said one's bigger. That doesn't take any skill. It's the opposite of skill. So I will just say that's one area I've always had beef with them, is that I feel like it's a mentality I don't like. It's the mentality of siloing information. And even beyond that, here's one thing I'll throw out there. If you're going to silo information and you're going to have access to other things like that, don't you ever dare go out publicly and talk shit to people who don't have that access to that information and act like they're idiots because they don't know things you have hidden behind a wall, essentially, and we're only seeing the output of it. Like, that's just obnoxious at that point in time, you know. Like I say, I'll put my information on the table. If I can't say something, then I can't say it's something I know from behind the scenes. I have to just make it part of my opinion. Like, I don't play that. I consider that like sort of below the belt if we're doing sort of intellectual jousting in this sense, you know.
So what about the more generic point that there's a lot of teams that basically could win any tournament? It seems like relative balance with a lot of teams that can come into the tournament and win it. Is this the healthier or what you prefer, or is this, or do you prefer, you know, when there's a clear number one, a clear number two? And
I've got one you might like. First of all, I actually do prefer when it's clear, but only in this context. It has to be clear because we've got a whole bunch of really good teams, but then one's so great they beat the other two or three. Second one's like, for example, everyone else hated it. I loved that era when Astralis won every tournament. Team Liquid always beat Na'Vi. Na'Vi could maybe beat Astralis, but they couldn't play Astralis because they lost to Team Liquid. I thought that was awesome because every time I watched those teams play, I have like a baseline I can judge this game off of. Ooh, last time they started out with a bad CT half, actually. Let's see if this changes it this time. They lost the first map like that. I could have fun with the variables, and it was greatness on display. They weren't first, second, and third because they were just okay, like now. They were first, second, and third because on the levels that they were good at, the other teams couldn't get to that level. It wasn't like, well, I just won this tournament. When you win the one next month, you'll be second. No, they were second or third first for months, for periods of time. So generally, yeah, I prefer that. But I would also say, here's a factor people aren't thinking about. So, you know, I always point out that I've basically cursed myself by putting so much effort into understanding pick ban, not just statistically, but on the level of what this says about the psychology of the IGL, where it suggests the team's at in practice. Because I've done such a good job, when I say it on analysis, everyone listening gets the cliff notes, and as long as you repeat the same thing, I think they should just pick overpass. It sounds like you did the work I did, and everyone knows what I know. So the better I am at doing this job, the worse it sounds like I am. It sounds like I'm just saying the obvious stuff. What you don't know is, who was the guy who pointed out that that's the one they should float on the second rotation, and then they did, and then they started winning the series? I'd just say go look that up. So what I'd say is this. One of the reasons I always emphasize that, it's the same reason you see me rant all the time about GMs. I'm not just talking to you guys who are the people enjoying the tweets and the articles. I'm sub-communicating to the GMs. I'm sub-communicating to the teams in question. That's why I love it when they come back at me on Twitter. What should I have picked? I couldn't pick that. I can't pick Inferno. I want to see them challenged on the areas where they just assume things that I don't think they've put their work into. So here's the point. Most teams, if we're being honest, they don't actually pick the map or ban the map based on what they're good at. They go on things like, what is my official win rate? What is my win rate in scrims? And that will absolutely, it's the same reason why in League of Legends, you see them play champions. They cannot play on stage because they just won 5 scrims with it. So they ignore that, like, maybe that player would be way better on specific other champions. So here's the point I'm going to make. We have a lot of whack map pools in the scene right now. And that's because, in my opinion, the sheer sample size of how many games you have to play, and more importantly, how many times you play lesser teams who could upset you because they don't play the normal meta, is making these teams become paranoid about their map pool. And so you see teams that are fantastic on certain maps who are getting away from those maps. They're like, I'm just not good on that map anymore. We've got to switch over to this one. So all of a sudden, everyone has like 2 maps they're going to pick, and that's it. And they're not going to gamble or punish picking you. Or if they're bad on their best maps, they're abandoning them and going only for punish picks, only for wild surprise picks. So that's why I tell you what, I like teams like Furia that just go, you know what, these are the maps we play. Whenever they're available, we're going to pick them. Do your worst. Because right now, we can't know every time if we're going to win on it. We can only know if we're good on it. And I prefer that mentality. So I think that in itself will make a lot of results way more variable.
I was thinking a lot about the current map pool recently, and I was wondering what you think is going to be like the next move that Valve makes when they get out of their bunker. If they just like take out Mirage and put Cash in, or maybe, I think you and Richard maybe talked about going down to 5 maps at some point, or maybe it was another show. I think that sounds like an interesting option, especially with like the chaos that's going on with all the online games right now.
Yeah, I mean, here's the good thing is, in my opinion, there's never been a 7-map pool where all 7 maps were good. You've always got at least, I mean, especially with the reworks, let's be real. There are a couple of reworks that are amazing. Overpass, maybe a year or two ago, Train. Some of the reworks now, they're terrible. Like, they make the map worse. I think this Dust 2 is worse than the old Dust 2. I think Vertigo's never been in a good place. Like, Nuke. I haven't even got to Nuke, guys. Nuke is still one of the worst maps. Everyone loves it because there's so much play on it. There's so much play on it because it's impossible to play CT side properly anymore. Like, everyone can lose a gun round a CT on Nuke. What you've done there is take the soul of Nuke and rip it out. Like, that's terrible. So in my opinion, right now, I think this is one of the worst map pools we've had in many years. So would I bring something like Cash back? Yeah, I think Cash can be redeemed. I think there was enough to Cash. I've tried playing the new one. I haven't played it enough. I hate the textures, but whatever. That's just an aesthetic judgment. I think the fundamentals of the map, though, not only work well, but crucially for me, it will always be a map that will allow you to frag out. It'll allow you to be a bit more of a skilled map. And I like having those maps in the pool, so I wouldn't necessarily take those maps out. Like, I tell you what, I'm a hater. I'd still take Nuke out. That's still a map I would remove. That's the map I think I think it contributes the least to the pool. And I think actually it's only been, this is also where you've got to find more than one factor. I already had my suspicions about it before, and that was despite Astralis being the best on it. What's concluded it for me, or made it a very strong likelihood it's got a problems, is now think of all the Nuke games you've watched recently. With this economy, which has already added an extra element, do you ever see Nuke games that are like 16.5? They all feel like they're 16.14 to me. So to me, that's not because people are playing the best game ever. Every game's like that. So I think there's massive problems with the map pool. So you know what? The idea of going down to 5 maps, if it's the right 5 maps, I'm telling you right now, Counter-Strike that will be played will be way higher. If the map that after we pick and ban, that's the last map left, is at worst my 5th worst map, now we're going to have some incredible series. This is why in 1.6, you could be an incredibly consistent team. You could have epic matchups. Like when I tell you, if people don't know the history, a classic story, when the Na'Vi team first appeared in 2010, the second best team in the world that year was the Danish team MTW that Zonic played for. They never won a single series against Na'Vi that year, and they might have played them 7 times. And part of the reason why was the map pool would almost be the same every time. And guess what? Now there's no BS. Now, if MTW was going to beat them, they had to actually be better on those same maps, the overlaps and where we're going to play. So if they'd have done it, that would have meant so much to their legacy. They didn't. And you know what? That ended up making it Na'Vi that gets it on their legacy. Think about how many excuses. Like, this is one of those areas where I think there's a curse and a benefit to working with Moses. Because I always say Moses' biggest strength is he's like an everyman. Like, I think everyone here, he's the guy where people use that hackneyed phrase, you don't want to have a beer with him. He's like the coolest guy to hang out with and just talk the game with, have fun. But in my opinion, he's not trying to be like he's not going away and fiending and nerding to try and find like who's got the best like upper execute on Nuke. Like, that's not him. That's why I think he appeals to people so much. He's totally nailed his niche because it's who he is as a guy. So when he says a lot, like he has a lot of platitudes, I feel like he says that I don't agree with him. We've definitely had our arguments about them, but people are allowed to have different opinions. So one that he always says is like that, when teams play each other a whole bunch, like the team that's losing adapts to them. I think when you play the team on the same map over and over again, if you're really good, you just keep beating them. Like there's no rule. There's no blue shell in Mario Kart that once you beat a guy 5 times, well, he's going to beat you now because you've trained him how to beat you. Sort of, but it doesn't happen that often. A lot less than people realise. So, I mean, look at Big and FaZe right now. FaZe, at this point in time, they must have like crystal balls out. They must be doing voodoo dolls. There's nothing they can do to win that game. Doesn't matter how many times they play them. I'm sure they scrimmed them a bunch as well. Nothing they do is allowing them to win that game. So right now, you know what? I don't want them to have an easy excuse. New map comes in the pool. They hop over to that. They make it a little bit more valuable. You know what? If you want to beat Big FaZe, get in the server. Get in those demos. Start grinding. You got to figure it out. I'll tell you what. I know it's possible because that's what Astralis did to EG. EG was beating Astralis every time out the gate, except the major. Well, after that, I'll tell you what, if you think Glaive and Zonic weren't living and breathing EG demos and NRG demos after that, you don't know the secret to Astralis, believe me. Who wants to talk now?
There was a thing I was thinking about was, so the Korean league is going franchise starting next year, I think. So this is the last non-franchise season, I think. Do you think that they will finally fix their playoffs from the weird gauntlet that they put in place after, what was it, season 4? Which is just, I don't know. Are they the only ones that have it?
Yes, that's the only one that has a playoff like that. In fact, if people don't know this, because a lot of people don't.
Oh, yeah.
The LPL actually was the most experimental through all of time. They're the ones that tried every different type of playoffs. And at the moment, they have like a really sturdy, like it's one that seeds you in. It's like a mixture of gauntlet, but then also they make it so that, like, I think the minimum you can get seeded into is the semis. So even if you win the regular split, you don't just get to come second minimum like you do in LCK, which has obviously caused a lot of problems. So yeah, they will. That's the interesting detail, is will they change the format? Now I have to say, a lot of people have complained, and believe it or not, that if it's big people in the scene, that does more than you think. Like, a lot of these companies are cowards and they won't even do it if they think it's right. They'll just do it because they think it's popular. So there's a chance on that front. I'd just say this. Why was it like this for 5 years? Like, did they never come to the conclusion ever? Weird how Rocks, Tigers, and then sometimes even, obviously in the more modern day, Gen G and some of the... Weird how all these teams win this spring, yeah, and then they just get wrecked in the final and come second. Must just be a bad team. Can't be. Think about how many times it happened. And one of the factors I've often made the case is you're actually taking the team that's the best in the regular season and saying, right, you get no playoff experience, you just play the final. I tell you what, Astralis would lose a lot of tournaments if you made them do that. I'm not joking. I'm talking prime Astralis. Think about how many times in their dominant era they would sometimes lose in the group stage, or in the ESL bracket, they'd lose in the group that's a double elim bracket. Just can't win the tournament anyway. Beat the same team later. You can't do that in the LCK one. So I agree with you. I think it's by definition the worst playoff format in the whole world. But there's a real problem here, and if you know this problem, you know why it might not change. That is the traditional method for playoffs in Korean team games. So everyone might know I revere StarCraft, Brood War, and I even enjoyed to some degree the GSL for StarCraft 2. That's 1v1. So 1v1, they do the formats we like. In team games, they used to have a team league called Pro League. It was very similar. You play a regular season, the top, let's say, 5 teams make the playoffs. 5 plays 4, winner of that plays 3, winner of that plays 2, winner of that plays 1. It is the traditional method in Korean esports. And so as a result, that goes back like 10 plus years. So my concern is that they just think that's what people want. Maybe even there's an angle where, I don't know, maybe they think it helps with marketing or something. I don't know what it would be. There's a lot of factors to go into there. But sadly, I think most of them aren't pointing to where we hope they were, especially because our last factor to bring in is they basically didn't get Western orgs buying in. Like, a lot of us thought FaZe Clan, some of them might go for a team and have an LCK team. Like, maybe, there wasn't any rumors of it, but there was like suggestions that would be like a chance to buy in. Since they didn't buy in, there's not even going to be the Western influence of like, why are we still using this format? It's all Korean still. So I'm kind of skeptical, unfortunately, even though I agree with you. I think it probably has to be changed.
And
Well-
the question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just on that last point. Well, the T1 now has a foreign capital, and doesn't Genji have or are they still completely backed?
Genji was
Korea?
always a foreign team, actually. A lot of people don't know that because
Okay.
they bought Samsung's team. But the guy who started Genji was like
Yeah, yeah.
Kevin something. He's from like Silicon Valley, mate. He's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
some
yeah.
tech guy.
Yeah.
And in fact, the top people are all Western people. So the point is that's an example of like a Western sort of owned Korean team. But it's not the same as FaZe Clan just starting from scratch, you know.
Yeah, no, I get that. But
Which is what transformed CS, if you remember, in the early days.
Yeah, but that's now the T1, previously SKT has a foreign capital in there, yeah, because that was the Comcast with SKT fusion or whatever was that financial behind that. So because that was my point, because I hate that format, but then they run through it really fast because you only have four match days with 4 days in between to rest, because there is usually 2 days between the semifinals and finals. So you can run through basically your whole playoffs, or basically gauntlet, in 8 days, and you're done. You have your champion 8 days after you have your regular season. But if they played less matches during the regular season, and you can run a double elim with 8 teams within 15 days with the same principle. You only have 1 day rest between for each team between their last match and the next match. Because that basically they don't subscribe to the stupid shit that we have in the West. It's like, oh, matches on this day, and then we have to wait a week for the next match for whatever reason.
I mean, they used to. That used to be the method. But anyway, here's the thing I would say is when I say Western influence, I mean like people who know the game. Like, okay, this is the most simple way to say it. Every Western person in those orgs you just listed is a business person who knows nothing about esports. Nothing. Best case scenario, they have someone advises them about esports. Like, I'll tell you one thing listen, I'm sort of doing something different on my Twitter if you see it at the moment, so I'm not going to go super hard, but I'll put it in different phrasing. I find it very disingenuous when T1 tweets as though they've integrated the Korean team with Western elements. So, for example, they will say to you in AMAs and interviews on Twitter that they now have a Western analyst who works with the team. Now, what is the implication there? Do they not think the Korean analysts can do an analysis work? Do they actually naively imagine, because G2, a team that has nothing related to them, is from Europe and they're from the West in general, that means that Korea needs their help? A bunch of guys we don't know. I personally, pure speculation here, I think when the guy sends in that report, I think the Koreans go, oh, thank you. And then they just fucking put it under like the pizza delivery menus when the guy goes out the room, and then they go, right, here's what we're going to do in the I think if they really believe that they're coaching that team, I think, listen, then tell you what, whoever's the coach of that team did a mega job selling you. He really knows how to get people to buy into whatever he's selling. You must be the Korean Weldon Green or something, So I'm skeptical of that aspect, yeah. All right, Zen, where are we going, mate?
Basically, the fact that there weren't Western orgs, and there weren't that many orgs, at least that's the implication. I mean, there's 20, which is all right, but
sure.
Do you think this is a Korea-specific thing? Is just a franchising concept, or just league like getting old, and you don't want to spend 10 millions for an esport that this old? Like, what do you think is the reason that there weren't more people applying when LEC have many more apparently?
Put it this way, I wouldn't buy an LCK. Yeah. It's going to cost millions of dollars, and what do I get from it? I'm big in one country. Now, this is where you've got to stop listening to people like Reddit and thinking it's real. When the Reddit guy, the perfect example ever is if you pick out a player, you could have the most obscure player ever, mate. You could pick out like Labrov, who's just come in LEC, who, unless you were a real National League nerd, you'd never heard of this guy. If you say unknown player, they'll go, he's not unknown, everyone knew who he was. So ignore that guy. That guy is a waste of everyone's time. So if you ignore that guy, nobody watches LCK, mate. Believe me, I make content around it. Nobody watches LCK. Like, if they watch something about LCK, they're not watching because it's LCK, they're watching because it's LS. They're watching because it's Papa Smithy. They're watching because Atlas is a pretty charismatic guy. They're watching because I do something about it. If you make a podcast that tries to nerd out on LCK enjoy your 800 to 1,000 views. That's going to be the world you live in. Because everyone tells you they follow LCK, but they don't watch the matches, mate. The viewership shows it. So as a Western audience, you're not going to market to a Western audience if you have an LCK team. What you're going to do is market to a Korean audience. And a Korean audience is incredibly homogenous. And they are mainly based around the teams that won years ago. Not the teams winning now. Griffin wasn't the most popular team. The teams, like, even though T1's still good now, I bet KT has more fans than Griffin had ever. And KT was terrible for the last year. So that's who you're marketing to, is a very niche audience who have their favourites, basically. And you're trying to create the next Beatles to go in and battle the new bands. So in this scenario, I don't think there's much upside to it. And then I'll add in Korea. Basically, this is one of the things, you know, everyone knows that famous detail that China sort of pretends to be like a Western democracy, but then uses only when it benefits them. And then they use other elements that you couldn't do in a Western democracy where it also benefits them. And they just get the joke they would say is the best of both worlds. Someone else might say the worst of both worlds. Korea is like that. Korea is essentially run like Game of Thrones. It is giant dynastic families who own the mega tech corps, and those tech corps own a company below that you don't know they own, that own a company below that you don't own. So here's an example. When LCK used to be OGN champions, On GameNet was owned by CJ Entus Entertainment, who owned CJ Entus Blaze and Frost, who played in the tournament, who were then head people of KESPA, which is the organisation that oversees the tournament. Right? Forget conflict of interest. That's like Oxygen is their conflict of interest. It has to exist. That's just the way they do business. So the problem with this world is, good luck trying to do business in that. That isn't anything. That's not even the illusion of a free market that you get in the West. That is a bunch of companies who at any point in time can get together. It's like telcos in the West. If me and you start a telco, you know why we won't be able to make it cheaper than all the other ones and give everyone roaming at the cost it should cost and kill everyone in business? They've all gotten together behind the scenes before we ever came on the scene. They did a bunch of regulations with government people that they lobbied, and the regulations basically make it so that it's like, unless you're them, you can't even be in the business. That's what being in Korea's like. So buying into Korean esports is buying into an incredibly complicated Game of Thrones system you don't understand, you have no idea about, and you will almost certainly fail to navigate, because you'll go in there and you'll naively think, oh, it's just like in the West. Like, I'm going to make power moves here and there. And you're going to find crazy stuff, by the way. Like, when you go and talk to this superstar player and you try to get him to come and join your team, forget poaching in the West, mate. They might just blacklist you straight out of the scene. Like, because their logic is, I own that player. How dare you talk to my property? Like, that's really what we're talking about. So it's just another world. It's just another world. And like, I wouldn't claim to understand it fully myself, but every insight I ever got, it was like Avatar or something. Mate. You're just in another universe. And there's a new set of rules to learn.
Was this like a formal Riot announcement that LCK was opening franchising to Western orgs? Because to me, that seems like completely out of touch with how Korean sports would work at all.
There was no announcement at all, mate. If you haven't noticed, in business, it doesn't benefit cartels to announce their plans, you know? They just do it amongst themselves. And in fact, this is one thing people don't understand about Overwatch League and LCS franchising. It is nonsense that they pick the teams with the best business plans. These people, the game devs, explicitly went to certain ownership groups from teams and businesses they wanted in their league. And I'll tell you one reason why. Because you know what? On some level, Blizzard and Riot know they're not as good as they pretend to be. So what they think is this. It's like, if you know what cargo cult thinking is, they think, if I create a scenario similar to the NFL, one day I'll wake up, I'm the NFL. How did I do it? Oh, this is amazing. So what they wanted is, they wanted Robert Kraft of the Patriots to buy into the Overwatch League and thought he'd make the Patriots again. They wanted teams to buy in who were in basketball teams to the NBA and make the Golden Guardians, because they thought, well, if they made the Golden State Warriors amazing, surely they'll do the same thing for this team. Well, you see how it's worked out with both teams, don't you? So what I would say is, like, these are people who, remember, all they did is make one video game. They're not kings of the universe in terms of business. They don't know anything about that. And worst of all, the number one thing that these people do, it's the reason why I personally, you know what, here's a hot take for you. I don't think Valorant will ever be a huge game, but more than that, are you ready for the big one? I don't think any Riot Games made game will ever be a number one esport again. Now that's a mad hot take, because they could go out tomorrow and buy a bunch of studios and make sick games. But the reason I say it is this. There's a lot of people got rich off one product, one business in the world, and got rich. The people who got wealthy and had like untold wealth and did like 10 businesses that succeeded, here's how they did it. The first business was their bread and butter. It was their passion. It was what they knew inside and out, and they knew something someone else didn't, and they made a product. The next business, they hired people who were like them before and said, what do I do? I'm delegating some of the responsibility to you. And that guy did it for them. So if people don't know this, right? If you listen to the story of why Apple became great again after their lull in the 90s, after they'd fired Steve Jobs, the story you'll hear is just about Steve Jobs. What they don't tell you is the guy who designed all those iMacs and the iPhone and everything was a guy called Johnny Ives. That was like what Steve Jobs was 30 years earlier. So what he did was he went out and got his next Steve Wozniak, his next Steve Jobs, and he brought them under him, and then he got to take credit for it, because guess what? He hired them, he scouted them. But that's the way a smart guy works. A smart guy knows what he doesn't know. Or maybe it's better like this. A wise man knows what he doesn't know. A smart guy thinks, well, I'm smarter than everyone in the room. I have to prove I'm smartest in the room. So what Riot Games does is they hire tons of creative people who are brilliant. They hired the guy who made LEC brilliant. People don't know this. He already has been working there for like a whole year now, I think. But guess what? When he gives his idea to whoever, in the name of all things good and pure, is above him in the hierarchy, I'll bet that guy goes, here's how I make it my idea, and then adds in his idea. Now, guess what? That was probably Sushi Dragon. It was probably all that nonsense. So basically, if you bottleneck a project at the top with someone who's not competent, yeah, you're never going to get the great things you want. You're never going to get the innovations you want, I'm afraid. Bit of a somber tone, this one. Anything nice in eSports going on?
Well, speaking... sorry, go ahead. I already gave a couple.
No, keep going.
Yeah.
Go ahead, then. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so basically, speaking of hot takes, so there was the match of the week video, G2 versus Fnatic, very hype, etc. But the fact is, they're both 3-3 now. So what do you make of this? Are these two, just a bump in the beginning of summer split, or is one of them bound to actually not make it that far into playoffs and so on?
All right, listen. I think it's time that people take a break from like easy narratives, simple narratives. Because if it's very simple, by definition, you had to have ignored some complex, nuanced ideas because it wouldn't be simple. So you got rid of them. So the narrative goes like this. There's only two good teams in the league, Fnatic and G2, and one of them's going to win. By the way, mainly Fnatic players and teams say that because guess what? Fnatic never wins. So mainly Fnatic people pushing that. To other people, by the way, outside of LEC, the logic goes like this. There's only G2. And they can do whatever they want. And at the end, they'll still win. Right? My problem is this. Yes, if I had to bet my money, a lot of the star power, a lot of the intangibles, a lot of the experience is going to give the edge in key matches in playoffs to G2, to Fnatic. But I'll tell you what, if you want to talk talent, Mad Lions is right there. Misfits and Rogue have the potential to be there. I personally think OG is the most stale team in the league. I don't know why anyone gets hyped for them. So for me, even if they somehow use their experience and their edges to somehow beat the teams I just mentioned at the end there, those three teams, doesn't matter. The potential of those three teams is way higher. So what people are ignoring is this. Those three teams in best of ones already could have got into G2 and Fnatic. I think actually the cap swap allowed people to think that it was just the cap swap that made G2 lose some of those games. I think Mad Lions some of those games straight up. And I think you're seeing it now with more experience under their belt, more acclimatization. And remember, Mad Lions in particular, before the split even began, were saying on shows like my show, we're going to experiment this split. Last split was about learning one style very well. This split's about experimenting. So you're seeing the same from Misfits when they brought in the players. Then let's go beyond that. So already I have G2 and Fnatic potentially being able to be beaten by three teams. And then I'm saying, oh, gee, I think they're a bit stale. But even there, it's not impossible, right? But I put them on the outs. That's to forget mentioning that when you go to the bottom of the tables, right, Vitality's not a joke, mate. Vitality's not like the teams from last year in the spring split that were terrible and they were bottom feeders. Vitality already won a couple of games. They will win more games. Like, they will probably still, right to the end of the split, threaten for a playoff spot. I think Schalke is the one that's done. That's why, if anyone notices when I did Summoning Insight, that's why basically I had sort of one of my epic rants at Ender, because he simultaneously wanted to give too much credit to them for winning some fairly meaningless games at the end of last split, but then didn't want to condemn them as basically a waste of time this split. Whereas I look at them, dude, that's a team that for real might end the split with 2 wins. That could happen. I'm being serious. Even Excel, you know what? Excel doesn't look like it has a great roster. They're going to upset some teams. They'll beat like the third, fourth team. They'll get one win over a Fnatic. So there'll be teams they'll get the odd win over, and they'll also be challenged. So basically what I'm saying is 9 out of 10 teams are in the playoff hunt probably until the second to last week, if not the last week, because they're doing super weeks now. So I would say get Fnatic and G2. You know that whole thing last year where at the end of last year, all the interviews from G2 were like, well, you know what? Probably going to take spring split easy. We learned our lesson. If you remember what I said on Twitter, I said, you know what? If you think you're great, prove it to me and go 18-0. Don't say to me, I was just phoning it in, then I go. Because here's the other thing, and I said this last split, didn't end up being as right, but it was in some senses. I said they're going to lose way more games than you think. They're not just only going to lose that one game to Fnatic and one game to OG every split. They're going to lose to a lot of teams. And you saw that. Schalke beat them. Mad Lions beat them. They lost to all over the Misfits. Everyone. Well, guess what? It's going to be more this time. Like, I think even if G2 and Fnatic win the league, they are going to suffer like... They could suffer 6 losses. This could really happen. 7 losses. This could be like a scenario where, if anyone remembers old school League of Legends, Season 3 summer was the one where I think all the teams in the league, by the end of the league, had a week where they were top 2 ranked. That was how much parity there was. So it's not like that in terms of who can win, but I think even the bottom teams can for real win the best of 1 now.
Remember Super Hot Crew in Taylor? Oh,
sure.
I love that team.
Anyone else want to come in on this part? Anyone watch League? Istar, isn't League your thing?
Yeah. No, so I was just thinking is like, yeah, I agree with this the 6-7 potential for G2 esports. Although I still think they might be coming into playoffs from like 5th or 6th place as the favorite to win it all.
Yeah, like old school Fnatic, if you remember. Yeah,
at the same time, just because like the one thing is that. As you said, like the easy narrative is like, oh, well, Perks is back to being ADC. It's like, well, yes, but he hasn't played it for half a year competitively. And the ADCs that are currently being at the top are completely different skill-wise to the ones that he was excelling last year at.
Sure.
So we still haven't seen him on Varus, but Varus used to be played mid. So I would say that if they get Varus, he would be performing really well, although, you know, that's 100 ban rate, so he's not getting that. But Aphelios and like Kalista, like that's completely different. They are making uncharacteristic mistakes, and some of them probably are from this as well. And then the other one as well is, you know, I don't know. Well, it's obviously they won't be bringing it up, but you know, he had the personal tragedy there, in the family. It's like he's not going to be 100% for the foreseeable future playing online. You know, like maybe mentally, like to use it as a distraction, sure, but I wouldn't expect him to be, even if the meta was exactly the same as last year, and it would be like, you know, Zaya Kai'Sa. I wouldn't expect him to play to the same level. So there is that. So I kind of, and here is the thing: Fnatic has been playing like shit. This 3-3 is quite fitting. So I think it's like tomorrow when they play, it's not going to be the win of who's better at the day, but it's going to be who's worse on the day. You know, who makes
I can believe that.
less mistakes. No, it won't be about like, oh, we outplayed them, we outmaneuvered them on the map. It's like, no, we made less mistakes, so that's why we won. I think it's going to be a very disappointing match tomorrow, because, you know, it's Fnatic G2, so obviously there's going to be hype in the pre-show and everything. I've
got a take for you, everyone probably hasn't heard as well, which is, I tell you what, G2, the main reason you can have hope in them still is that most of what they've accomplished was genius in the moment. They just have a crazy intuition for the game. The team I'd be worried about if I were you is Fnatic. Like, not only is Fnatic dropping games all over the place, but I always say this, I don't know. I think Fnatic has some of the worst marketing of any major org in all of esports. Because what they used to do is just do it straight, like from 2010. Like, we won this game and Fnatic won, cheer for us fans. And everyone's like, well, I can't connect with that at all. Like, what's the identity? And basically, you're only a Fnatic fan if you're a fan of Xpeke, Suarez, Reckless. Like, that's it. Like, not because of it's not a cool brand. There's nothing special about it. It didn't even have the qualities like Nip had in CSGO. It didn't even have like an identity. And then, what has been their current flip? Right? I'm just going to call it straight up. Their current flip was, well, people like it when G2 memes, just copy their style of memeing, like literally. In fact, go to like Know Your Meme and find every current popular meme and just insert Fnatic instead of G2. And so as a result, the reason it doesn't work is because I'll tell you the meme they are. They're the meme of that guy with the crying face behind the mask that's like smiling with the pointy nose. Like, ha ha ha, guys, I'm memeing too. It's like, dude, this is killing you inside to make these memes. Like, when you say like, put it this way, you know what? This is how you know they can't meme. Show me where they will meme by mocking Reckless if he loses a game, in the way that like they would mock Yankos in G2 or Caps or something like. They'll never do it. So as a result, they haven't figured out their identity as an org. And one of the problems is this: when you watch, this is where I say the marketing's bad. You know, when they keep releasing these like sound check type thing, like mic check type things for Fnatic, every Fnatic one makes me think, how is there no one else commenting on this? I never hear any discussion of the comms. Their comms are terrible. Their comms go like this. Bwipo and Hillesang continually like, we can fight here, I could go in here, let's fight, good fight, I want to go in. And then what happens is, Nemesis just says nothing and backs off. Reckless just backs off. And so at that point in time, it's like, that's the opposite of G2. G2's like, either we go in or we don't. It's like, we're all on the same page. We just do it. In fact, their take obviously is go in every time, don't you? But Fnatic is this nightmare. It's still a team that is stitched together to Frankenstein's monster. And my problem is, Mithy is a very good coach, and I could see him working with certain players and making them better. Like, one of the things I think he's very good at is he won't tolerate any BS. But this is where Youngbok was worth his weight in gold. This guy's a genius when it comes to like social elements and team dynamics. And so I have to say, I think forever, until they fix the core of this team, Fnatic will be a band-aid team. Because one of the band-aids will always have to be the draft. How could you be one of the top teams in the world and have two players, Reckless and Nemesis, who always have like 3 or 4 champions max? You can't always have that. I mean, listen, in the old days, as AD carry, you could get away with it. That ain't the world we're in now with the majors. You've got to not only have 3 or 4, but if you want to be really good, ideally, top should be able to flex with mid. ADC should potentially have a couple of mid majors. This is how you unlock a draft and destroy someone in draft. Fnatic go into a draft like, fingers crossed, we got to ban everything we can't do and let's hope we can get what we want. And then if they get them, they win. And when they look good, people go, I told you Fnatic was one of the best. It's like, I've got a rule in esports. If you can only win when everything goes your way and you have all the things that make you comfortable, you aren't one of the best. You aren't one of the greats. You're just good or very good. And there's a big difference between those two, in my opinion. Like right now, listen, the problem is because of the standings, it means nothing to say this, but I'll just say it anyway because, you know, the split hasn't ended. I don't know about playoff experience, but yeah, I would put good money that Mad Lions beats out Fnatic in this particular split. It looks good for me. They just, everything, there's so many factors that have a check next to their name that would go against Fnatic.
It's also the, you know, the usual mantra that you say about the mids, like they are coming even more into their own, both for Mad Lions and for Rogue.
Oh yeah, of course. Some of the best in the league, right?
Yeah. Like, with I would actually say that they
might be the best. They might be better than Caps right now, right?
Is probably 1 and 2 right now. Yeah,
seems fair to me. Yeah. Why not?
Caps is doing like some weird shit dying in side lanes again, like reminiscent of like Spring Split last year. Well, just after he joined G2, so there is yes, and then. The also other ones, like when you mentioned the comms, which was brought back when you had Larsen on the crackdown, when he was saying, it's like, you know, who's the shot caller? It's like, we all shot call. I'm kind of getting tired of the league players saying that, because that's never the thing. They're
just covering for each other, mate. They're just trying to make it so no one gets singled out, you know.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous. It's like how much I don't know if the shift within the team, like the culture changed, but basically, you know, like this is something that kind of I think was lost when like Yellow Star and now Mitty are gone, because basically, okay, there was a bad call, but they would say, yeah, I made a bad call.
Of course, yeah.
But now they're saying, it's like, oh, everyone is shot calling. I'm shot calling.
Oh, we're all NA now, yeah.
Yeah,
we're NA,
it's like, no, you're not. Like, I think there was a comment about this, like last someone from Fnatic, I think even last split said it, and then they released the comms, and you just say, it's like, no, you're all talking. You're not all shot calling. When someone says, "Can we do Dragon now?" and then either people say, "Yes, let's go." The first guy didn't come up, like he came with a question. He didn't come up with the, like he might have recognized that maybe there is a play there, but he didn't shot call the play.
I've got an analog for you. You're gonna love here between G2, Fnatic, and Moscow 5 and CLGEU, the two classic teams of the Season 2 era, 2012. Here was the difference between the two teams. Right? Remember the results. Moscow 5 could literally beat anyone. They could even beat the best Korean teams. They could win any tournament. Their comms went like this. In Russian, I go in now, you follow, and then they would just go in. And if you don't follow up, then we lose the game. So you have to go in. It's all in. And as a result, when they would win, they would humiliate you and win in 22 minutes. Now, CLGEU are famous for being like the silver medal team. They would get so close to win. They almost won Origen. Didn't know. Almost doesn't count. They almost made it to the final worlds and would have been favourite. Doesn't matter. Didn't make it there. So why were they always second place? Why were they so close? And their style, 38-minute game, you win with team fights. Here's what happened, right? If you ever go and listen to an interview from that era, they're the ones who started this trend in 2012 of there's no shot caller. We don't believe in it. It's a democracy. We all say what we think. And I mean, Wicked used to claim like, whoever says it loudest gets to do it. That isn't the case. They would just all talk. Can we do this? Let's do this. I think maybe we do this. Well, guess what? That indecisiveness is why every game took bloody 38 minutes to drag out. And that you only won at the end when the other guy was like just exhausted. Like, and then he just finally loses one team fight and you're like, I win. That's like the people where they just play a defensive style in the UFC and they win every fight by decision. No one will ever consider you the GOAT if you do that. The guy who's the GOAT, here's the thing, right? Because he never lost, everyone now says GSP is the GOAT. I followed UFC back then. Everyone said Anderson Silva and Fedor were the GOAT. Every single major fan and expert. Because guess what? They won every fight and they knocked you out and humiliated you. So to me, this is the problem, is like that style, I think it can only go so far. Like you can bolster it by having the best players. They've got some pretty good players. But I'll tell you another thing that really annoys me. It's one of the reasons why I'll probably always keep doing shows. Because I always feel like one of the best reasons to put something out in the world is no one else is saying what you think. Isn't that a good reason? So when I watch these shows, if you notice, every time Monty goes overboard to contrast to LCS and says that LEC is fantastic, brilliant, you notice I always seem like I downplay him a little bit. Like, I agree they're good, but there's these areas that are not that good. That's because what I don't get is this. I'm being told LEC's like G2. They're edgy, they're willing to say stuff, they meme on players, they criticise them. Go and find me the post-game shows, what's that called, like post-game lobby. Go find me the episodes of that where they go in on Nemesis and they point out that he's in one of the best teams in the world and he lost them a game with passivity. He did a pick where it's on him to win that matchup, but he didn't win the matchup. He lost by 10 CS, or he played in a way where he couldn't have won. Go and show me the VODs where they do that. They don't do it, mate. It doesn't happen. This is non-existent. They'll just revert. Partly, by the way, because Fnatic are the TSM fans of Europe, they'll just revert to lazy team stereotypes, general, they were that close to beating them this time, they'll go to that. You don't hear the hard-hitting analysis I want. Same as I've pointed out on many shows, it's why me and Dom always ask every European player. You would think Nuke Doc was Season 3 Nuke Doc the way they talk about him now. You wouldn't, listen, I've made this point before. How can anyone go in on me about Froggen, who, by the way, if you've ever listened to my shows for the last 2 years, I've never said it's one of the best mids in the world for years and years. That's like an opinion from when he was 6 years ago. But when I talk about Froggen, right, and everyone goes, going on about Froggen again, overrating him, it's like, I tell you what, mate, should we just skip to the part where you tell me how good Nuke Duck is again?
Yeah.
Just saying.
And those PGLs as well, like, I think they're, whenever they do something like a little bit harsher, it's not even like super harsh, it's like a little bit harsher. They only do it to the teams that kind of, or to the players that express themselves in the same way when they're talking about their own team. Yeah, so they can be critical of, let's say, G2. Yeah, but that's because these players basically show that they, first of all, can take it, can dish it out, do the jokes and all that stuff. So so that's more loose. But yeah, it's like, yeah, Fnatic is like all mellow. I think like there is.
They desperately on that show want you to believe OG is really good. They're so eager for you to be like for some reason they think they have to like prop up OG. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, which is weird because like they are the kind of like they always been well, not always, but for the longest time, like the gatekeepers of the like the late game. Yeah, like if you got to like 35 minutes against them and you won, then okay, you
Should I tell you the spoiler?
You have.
Yeah, they also don't have shot calling, mate. That's why they're also doing it. That's the joke.
True, but then for the last 3 years, it's the newbies that are going to the worlds. It's not them that going to the worlds either, So they also only do it in the regular season when it's not everything is on the place.
Yeah? Oh, I'm with you. Yeah, remember that style, if it works well, is supposed to win you the key playoff series versus the underdog, and then that's how, as you say, you get the worlds, you get the final. Yeah. They only do it in the best of ones. I'm with you. Exactly. Like they should have been. Obviously, in a sane world, they should have taken care of G2 themselves when G2 was weak, and then they would have been playing mad lads. They could have had the run. No, one of our problems as well as this is, put it this way, have you ever noticed how people love to apply logic X to situation Y, but then not logic X to situation Z? They just come up with a totally different set of logic and then pretend like they have principles. I'll tell you something I find very interesting. If Astralis organization, Astralis group, so brilliant, well, why is OG garbage then? Relative to what their players are, what they could have been, what they're supposed to be. Why are they just just above average team? Last year, they had access to all those facilities, mate. They had access to the handball coach if they wanted him. They had access to all those things, sports psychologist. Yeah, notice you never hear about that, do you? You never hear about OG having a sports psychologist and never doing anything in the game and being indecisive. Because guess what? These people aren't miracle workers. It's not like going to the fountains at Lords and then like you dip your feet into the thing. I am healed. It's like the guy just sits you down and talks you through things and tries to give you a few tools. And if you use them in the game or not, there's nothing he can do about that. It's a shotgun approach. If anyone's ever looked into it, psychoanalysis works, they say famously, for 33% of the people, they get better. For 33% of the people, they get worse. For 33% of the people, they stay the same. So basically, try it. If it starts to go worse, I'd quit. If nothing's happening, I'd quit. If it works for you, go for it. That's what you've got to do. So same with sports psychologists. Like, they don't just come in and wave a wand and then everyone's sick. So it's just funny how, like I say, they almost use the illusion of criticism to avoid actually giving criticism. But then again, you know what? There'll always be a show to work for that.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember who was LS talking to.
Probably Nemesis. Who?
No,
talk about?
No, because it was specifically about the like psychoanalysis analysis and going to see someone. Yeah, going to see a specialist.
Okay.
And I'm not sure.
Maybe that guy who's the doctor on YouTube who's
They were referencing that he was on his stream, but he was talking to someone on one of the shows. It might have, or maybe it was a co-stream. Maybe it was with Dom, and he was saying it's like he went through like 5 of them.
Of course.
Because
people usually don't go through one therapist, mate. They keep going until they find one that works.
Exactly. But here is a narrative. It's like, well, these teams
we've got one.
Yeah, exactly. You have one, and that's supposed to be the be-all, end-all because you had one for 5 players with 5 different personalities. But in personal life, you don't go to the first guy and basically just stick to the guy. If it doesn't work, as you said, if it doesn't work, you switch. If it doesn't, if it stays the same, you switch. It's only when you find the one that actually makes you better and makes you go through your problems that's the doctor that you stay with. But in esports, it's like, oh no, we have them. And to the point is like all the facilities, you heard about them once when they got acquired and they ended the league. That's what they talked about it non-stop, that all these facilities, Origen has them, and after that there was nothing.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. Anyone else want this topic, or are we going to another one?
Just a small comment on why they don't badmouth Origen. I think it's their friends with either the Fischio or Expeke or one of those.
Which is, by the way, the most corrupt reason not to criticize someone. Let me just ask you some question quickly, right? Does anyone remember when Monty owned teams or coached teams? I tore them up because they weren't as good as they thought they were. Does anyone know that the people behind Flashpoint, the first big teams involved, are MIBR and Cloud9? Now, if anyone follows my CSGO coverage, I'm probably the number one critic of both teams. Everyone else looks for any light in the darkness and grabs onto it. I've told you from day one, Cloud9 CSGO with that 5-man lineup will never be a relevant top team. Yeah. So the point is, yeah, unfortunately, that's the entire industry in a nutshell, mate. It's one of the reasons, by the way, why actually, without going into a whole digression, it's one of the reasons why I didn't like the way all these people who were in the analysis scene were treating the K's guy. Because every opinion he gave that was stupid, they made out like it was the stupidest one ever. Then their mate says something utterly stupid. Nothing, crickets. That's not intellectual honesty. But I think you're probably very right. Yeah, they're all mates with Deficio. Dude, I think even Monty goes easier on them in some ways because of that. Yeah. He definitely goes easier on 100 Thieves, if you notice, because mates with Papa. I'm not saying he goes completely. He's not as bad as them. But he's always going to give them leeway. Like, here's the difference. If it's Ica, of course Monty can see this guy's a bomb and he's never going to make it. If it's Ryoma, he's still new to the scene and he's just been in NA. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like everyone has ways in their mind that it's cognitive dissonance. Everyone can find a way to rationalize away something. I've always had a theory. Like, I used to be, some people might know this, I used to be one of those like nuts and bolts, like material rationalists where I thought like everything could be logically figured out, like mathematically calculated, everything had to make sense. I actually now have come way to, not the other side, but a different dimension where I think there's a place for some of those things, but only for very specific ends. And I actually think most things that are meaningful and important in life, your intuition tells you what you think, and then you look around with your rational mind for reasons to explain why it's okay for you to think that. I don't think you actually do put together, like, you're not like Aristotle and Plato going back to like first principles and building up to it. Like, that's a great idea. That's what people like Mousesports say they do. I don't think it's actually possible. I think you have a feeling for a team and then you try to come up with a model that can explain it.
That's actually what David Hume, the philosopher, says about, well,
it was their era, right? They were all critiquing reason. Yeah, exactly.
No, but what David Hume said was the feeling is what leads to the fact. So if you feel something is right, you'll research it to find out why it's right, as opposed to just trying to find out which one is right. So,
shall I tell you a detail that might blow everyone in his mind if they've only ever followed like history books on the world and science?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Like, you know, they always tell you that detail of trivia that Isaac Newton, probably the greatest mathematician on record, he, for fun on the side, used to do alchemy. You've probably heard that, right? And he was into like weird stuff. And so, like, you know, he was a genius, but he was weird as well. Go and actually look into Newton's work and then look into what he was studying in alchemy. You've got the cart before the horse. He literally took concepts from alchemy and figured out a way to make that a scientific theory. So, for example, the concept of gravity came from this alchemical thinking that even things like that things in the world have like a magnetic force, not magnetic because that's going to confuse you if you think scientifically. I mean, like they have an attractive force to them that pulls them. It's called the law of attraction. It's part of the emerald tablets of the alchemists in ancient times, right? He took these ideas and then started trying to figure out, how do I make this a scientific theory? It wasn't the other way around at all. And it's the same with a whole bunch of those areas. So, like, I mean, by the way, in the modern day, it's corrupted now, but a lot of germ theory, etc., is basically based on like the work of Paracelsus, an alchemist who thought that like taking a small amount of something can be a cure in the same way as a large amount of something becomes a poison. Like, it's actually, like, again, we're going kind of off into the weeds here, but I think you get what I'm saying. Where do you want to go from this, though, Soliko? You kind of on one there, mate. Go on.
Wait, what are you talking about? I'm sorry. I was.
Weren't you making a point?
Well, I'm just waiting for you guys to finish talking about like the League of Legends stuff, because I personally don't follow.
All right, transition it then. Yeah, pick something else.
Yeah, what I wanted to talk about was device referencing on HLTV Live. The fact that Glaive and Zipex, their plans on coming back, or as it seems with Zipex, not at all coming back, seemingly. I mean, he referenced it like...
He did it very cleverly, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Well, he basically said Zipex doesn't have a return date, and what I make of it is basically, I think Zipex has just had it with the organization. And I think Device just, I think it's a personal thing, right? I really do think he has hope that Zipex is going to come back. But Zipex was basically like the angry girlfriend that said, well, fuck you, leave me alone, don't ever talk to me again, and left. And Device is like sitting next to his phone, waiting for Zipex to message him, saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overreact, blah, blah, blah. That's what I make of the situation. Like, seeing Device reference it.
Put it this way, here's something people don't know about Zipex, is he seems really quiet, right? But the reason he was involved in setting up a player union, the reason he, behind the scenes, often is doing some of these things is he is a very rational guy, a very logical guy. But as a result, I agree with you. I think once you reach a certain point, it's kind of like me. I don't just phase people out gradually and go, well, that's a shame. Once they violate my core principles, I can't trust them. They're done. See ya. That's it. Bye. I don't have to live my life that way. Like, I have certain principles and certain types of people I want to be around. And if you prove not to be that person, we were never best friends, mate. We were working together. So that's it. It's bye. You've fucked up. And I'm not talking minor fuck. I was talking about big things. So in this case, I suspect you're right. My suspicion, a little bit of inside info, some of it speculation, is that I think Zipnix is on the legal train, mate. I think he forced his way out of that lineup. And I think right now he might even be in a scenario of either potentially a lawsuit or some sort of scenario where until they meet certain things or maybe redo his contract, I agree with you, maybe he won't come back. Especially because remember, the major could be way further away than we think. So there's not even pressure on him to make that decision. He can sit back if he wants. So what I would say is this. I've been waiting till we do By the Numbers, which is coming soon. I think it's tomorrow, actually. It's like tomorrow at like 12 European time because we had to do some fucked up hours because of Richard's schedule. So basically, I've saved a lot of it to that. I haven't done a video yet. But after that, I'll make my own video on the topic. Device's appearance on that show was such nonsense. I can't believe people lapped it up. I can because I've done this rodeo too many times, guys. I've just done the rodeo too many times. It's like if you tell people just enough of what they want to hear, they'll believe everything you say.
Oh, man.
So that show to me was Device not answering questions. Remember what Chad said early in that episode? I think it was him. I can't remember if it was him or the professor guy. They implied what Richard revealed in his article, that there are actually very strongly worded clauses in Astralis' contract that essentially say you can't disparage or reveal certain things. But then Device went on to give you the illusion he was addressing them and even, in a backhanded way, addressing us and what we'd said. And all I can tell you is, I have very strong sources that say that that is a lie, what he said on that show. In fact, some of the things he said, this is what I love about liars. You know the famous quote by Mark Twain, like, if you just tell the truth, you don't have to keep track of what you said. That's what they never learned. They lie to everyone and in every way that all you have to do is compare them to each other, mate. It's the reason why they've never pissed me off enough to make me do it. But I could have made you in a god tier video after that Immortals drama where they turned up late to the DreamHack Montreal final because their own stories don't match up and in total violation. In the same way as, you know, some of the Gospels in the Bible like contain facts that don't even get mentioned or are directly against what the other one says, but they're all supposed to be four guys that were stood there all seeing the same thing.
Wait.
So what I tell you... Yeah, go on.
So you're saying you could have made more than 3 videos on the Immortals and the KNG drama?
Way more, mate.
Dude, you talked about like... You probably spent like... I spent like 2 hours of my life multiple times listening to those videos again and again, thinking you went way more ham than you should have in some situations, even though I agree, it was a dramatic situation that should have never happened. But damn, just imagine the fact...
Put it this way, if I made you a documentary where I lay out the timeline and then I show you their statement and then I show what the other guy said and then I show you what the anonymous source, which by the way sometimes was people in their team and in their org, when I tell you what they said, which is why those fans tell us that didn't happen though, it's like, right, okay mate, you know better than me, see ya. So I'll just say they would look really silly if you just saw their words compared to the timeline. Like as in 3 of them gave a totally different time that they arrived. I'm not talking like by 2 minutes off. Like, I think one of them said they arrived 5 minutes. One of them said they were on time. One of them said, okay, we're half an hour late. You know, like they didn't even collaborate on the stories, guys. They were telling the stories one by one, making it up. So yeah, anyway, to go back, Device basically just did that. And he said things that were at best disingenuous and sometimes lies, sometimes outright. And by the way, I don't say the word lie lightly. You can not know something, or you can just have a different opinion. He knew some of these things and he told you the opposite in some cases. I mean, think about what he said. Remember, Zonic himself in interviews said the players coming in weren't just subs. It was going to be a real rotation where they would play and they would be part of the team. Oh. The guy, Casper Vid, said that he wanted multiple IGLs and people to be able to swap in for every role, and that in the future they'd have a 10-man lineup. What did Device say? That if the real 5-man lineup can play, they should still have all the chances to win the majors, that the best 5 players should play, that, you know, the other guy will sort of be a sub and maybe can play sometimes if someone has a break. They're all people inside Astralis. Like, you don't even need me to make an argument. Just have them argue with each other.
The immediate question that pops into my head, like as soon as I saw Device announced as being a guest on HLTV Live, I was like, this has to be the works of the higher.
Convenient, wasn't it? Have you ever seen him on shows or interviews before?
Yeah,
the guy doesn't do them.
Exactly. I mean, it's so rare that he would even say something, not even in an interview. Let's put those aside, on his own girlfriend's stream. Yes, he makes appearances, but he's like the quietest guy ever on those streams. And I've seen like a few clips. I don't religiously watch streams, not those ones. I like watching Age of Empire streams, but that's beside the point. He's totally quiet in the stream. And whenever he came on HLTV Live, the first question I thought was, what is going to happen politically after like his appearance? Is he gonna get a slap on the wrist? Because, you know, naively I thought in the beginning maybe he's just, you know, he's trying to reveal something, like not exactly.
Have you noticed you got almost nothing out of that show as
yes,
well? No new
exactly.
information
So
of like
he
2
talked
hours.
a lot. He didn't say much.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So after the show, I was like, yeah, he's definitely getting a pat on the back for handling this so well, not giving up any information. Just
Do you remember when me and Richard were talking? Because the best comparison to this is if anyone was around in late 2015, was when NiP was already going to break apart, and famously they were going to make a team that was like G2 but featuring like Rain and Exist and Forest, and then Get Right was going to join Cloud9. Get Right was even like, I think he was going to board a plane before all this got pulled. So at the time, NiP was going to break up because their org was already terrible back then and did loads of ridiculous stuff. Well, when they did all this, they established a playbook that is essentially what low-level hustlers and grifters who are liars will do. It's like the stages of how they'll jump from thing to thing to thing to thing. So they'll start out with the big lie. You unfold that's not true. They then sort of rationalize and negotiate it down to a few small lies, and they maybe do like what you call in the conspiracy world a limited hangout, where you reveal a little bit of what went wrong, but so as to not reveal the bigger part. Then, and this is why Richard's referenced this and why I referenced it myself, then the next move is this. After the journalists show that you're lying and have sources, the next play is always this. You must have a player say the journalists are lying. Because when you do that, you win every fan back. Not all of them now, because luckily now people know there's a track record that Richard isn't lying. But back then, Freiburg came out and basically said Richard Lewis was wrong. And you know what? I'll never reveal anyone's sources, but NiP players were some of Richard Lewis's sources. So I won't, again, personally, I know Richard and DK are different from me in this sense. They're just different people. They think as long as the player gets his money and it gets fixed for him, I'm cool with it. If you know me, I'll never fuck with liars. Never going to do it. If you lie, as far as I'm concerned, you're a prostitute. You sold your integrity for money. That's not cool. Like, why is it so important that a guy who makes 30,000 gets the 5k extra? What, his soul is worth 5k? And in the modern day, by the way, we're talking about the difference between you can have 250k, you can have 300k. Is 250k not enough? Is that not enough to have all the things you want and have your soul and your integrity? Apparently not in this world. So sadly, that's just... This is one of the reasons why I'm just going to give you a spoiler. I won't say it elsewhere because nobody's business. Astralis players only exist as players in the server to me now.
you were... The question is, are you still a fan of their game? Like, if Astralis...
What would having been a fan have to do with the personality, though, mate?
Yeah, that's...
Mate, I'm a fan of Fallen's game, and the guy's one of the biggest liars of all time.
Oh, I'm talking about... that's why I specifically said about their game. Like, if the Astralis players, like the 5 players, the greatest team of all time, say tomorrow they're Cloud9, sorry. Are you going to be a fan of their game? And
I don't know if you're lost on this, but I'm still a fan of Astralis now, mate.
You're just not a fan of their personalities, in some sense.
I mean, personality has nothing. Believe me, mate, some of the best CSGO players of all time were morons.
Oh,
I won't tell you who. There was some that were
doubt-
really stupid. So to me, personality has not... Like, listen, it can inform your game. Sometimes character, I'd say, is a better way to describe it.
Are you going to say
But-
yes?
No.
No.
But basically, mate, I'll put it this way. I know people in the LEC who have STDs. Does that mean I'm not a fan of their game if their game's straight fire? No, it doesn't affect. I'm capable of separating it. I know why you're asking, because most people can't, mate. That is how most people run their game. Like, for example, you've probably heard over the years where I can always catch them in it as well. I would always be able to catch loco or veteran on a player that they inexplicably think is really good, but nothing says it by their own metrics. Yeah. And then there's a player they inexplicably think is bad who's pretty good. And the reason is personal. They know something about them in person. They did a scummy move. They said something about me. They had a bad interaction with them, or they screwed over their friend and they believe the story. And as a result, that's their blind spot, basically. So I would just say this. If you ask people to name my top 3 blind spots, right, as in the players that go that way, I guarantee you every single one, they're giving opinions from 5 years ago and making it that I have that opinion now. You'll be very hard pushed to find one. Like I told you, everyone would say now my blind spot's Nemesis, right? I'm the only one giving you the real on that. Everyone else is just puffing it up, telling you he's sick. What they do is this, they use this logic. Right, as opposed to talk about Nemesis's game, I'm going to say that since he's in Fnatic, that's number 2, he must be very good, because he's in Fnatic's number 2, it's called circular reasoning. Then they go, plus he must have a big champion pool, because in Soliko he has a big champion. And then also, I know that he is vocal and that he has a really good mind for the game because he talks to LS. Notice how not a single one of those facts addresses how he plays in LEC matches. Now here's what's funny. Do I do that for Froggen? Froggen plays all the assassins you'd like on his stream, mate. He goes ham on his stream. He sometimes just roams all the game on the stream. I don't use that as a reason that he does it in the game in LCS. Because it's nonsense argument, you know. So basically, if they made the 5-man lineup now, I'd be a fan of Astralis. I don't think people get this. I was a fan of them when they were Blastralis.
It's the like the comparison would be, you know, like you can still enjoy, you know, Drake's music, not Drake the person.
Dude, I was a huge fan of Fedor's brother, Alexander Emelianenko, because he was actually arguably more talented. If just go and look up his rap sheet online and the things he's done, like it's not like put it this way, I would never let him near anyone I care about. But I tell you what, if he wants to go and smash someone's face in a cage, I'll pay. I'll watch, mate.
On the Astralis question and the Zipniks, it's like there is, and maybe, I don't know if you heard any rumors on this. It's like because there were 2 stories. One, that all the Astralis took the 30% pay cut, and then 2, then that none of the Origen players took the pay cut. At least that's how I understood.
That's close to the things I've heard, yeah.
That's how I understood it. But then I think on the last, by the numbers, I think Rich said that actually some of them did and some of them didn't for Origen, which...
It's because here's another thing, right? These orgs are clever. When you talk about Astralis players and Astralis org, you've just made a division in your rank, right? There's a group of players, there's not... No. The org goes one by one to each of them. The first thing you do is divide and conquer. So here's what happened, basically. Some of the Origin players figured out, is this even legal? I'm going to get a lawyer to look at this. And the ones who did that said, I will just be getting the money you've agreed to pay me and I will not be taking your voluntary pay cut. Thank you, sir, goodbye. Knowing they couldn't be fired as well, by the way. Probably even legally. The ones that didn't were like, oh, well, guess I better take this pay cut and just took the pay cut. Now, by the way, as was suggested in Richard's article, that was part of what caused some of the resentment in Astralis. That they were the way more successful team, than way more, supposedly like the golden children, and then you find out that you've taken a pay cut, or you've been asked to even, while someone in Origin didn't, and they're just some like okay, above average League of Legends. What? Well, I'd lose my shit if I heard that as well.
Oh, of course, but here is the other one. What if not all of them did take the pay cut? Wouldn't that be?
I'm confused to what the point is.
Out of the 5 players, okay, they're now pissed off because we had to take the pay cut, Origen didn't. Yeah. You know, the Astralis group can come in and say, well, actually, you know, they're separate subsidiaries, separate financial, separate everything, whatever. You know, they can always lie about that. But what if out of the 5 players, Astralis players not all of them, it was communicated that they did, but what if not all of them did?
Oh, I would believe they could have lied. Yeah, of course. By the way, that would also be one of my first assumptions.
Then comes out, if then that internally then comes out that, let's say, one of them didn't.
Put it this way, I'll make... This is the problem with journalism, right? As in when you have the tools of the journalist. Listen, modern journalists are all liars. And if you have actually looked at the history of journalism, it was basically made as a fake front to promote products through what seemed to be objective journalism. But there's been certain great men who happen to be journalists and expressed in their work. They were like, they hunted for truth. They would battle and get the ideas out there. The number one tool, in my opinion, of the journalist like that is in the modern day, you don't suppress information. You just choose to release other information so that someone doesn't notice what's conspicuously missing. To them, it's not conspicuous. I'll tell you something very conspicuous right now. Device sat on a show talking for 2 hours, and in theory, he clapped back at me and Richard and the reports, right? Why were there certain questions he didn't answer? Why were there certain things he didn't say? Because he didn't want you to know that. So here's an example. Go and watch the VOD. They are talking about when Astralis is a player-owned dog and saying, and I think Chad says to them, I'm sure you guys still own a couple of percent. Device just says silent, says nothing. He waits for the next question. If that's true, why doesn't he just speak up? I'm not saying he has to reveal them out. Why doesn't he go, yeah, that's true, you know? Why, when we're talking about this topic here, pay cuts and this sort of thing, why doesn't he just, remember, he's there to show us up and tell the truth. Why doesn't he just say who took, like, oh, none of us took the pay cut. That wouldn't be a problem. How about if he says we all took the pay cut? That's not a problem. I'm not saying he has to say 3 did, 2 didn't. He just didn't talk about it, mate. It's what they didn't say. If anyone knows, this is a very famous concept from Sherlock Holmes. It's the dog that didn't bark. There's a certain case he does where the way he cracks it is at one point there was supposed to be a dog involved in this story in the alibi, right?
Yeah.
And then he notices, wait a minute, how could they have like broken into this area here if the dog would have barked? And it didn't. And that's what proved that it didn't take place, basically.
Or wasn't it that the dog knew the killer or something?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
Like it was someone who was from. Like it usually is in these stories. It's for
it was like a familiar.
By the way, if anyone wants to like learn some basic journalistic skills, go read that series. Because listen, the element that they took for that BBC show that made the BBC show garbage is they just took the ridiculous element where it's like he just memorized everyone's footsteps in London and, you know, he knows the smell of every type of cigarette. Like, that's just stupidity. That's the part that, I don't know if you know this, but Sherlock Holmes was serialized in newspapers. It was for plebs. But because back then you could be artistic as well, the really high-level parts are about deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, how you rationalize. Those parts are brilliant. Like, there's some parts in those books that you can take and apply to life, mate. They'll help you sort of figure out if someone's lying sometimes or contrast two scenarios. There's a lot you can take from it, even though it's fiction.
Were you referencing Hound of the Baskervilles? Is that...
No, that's a different one, mate.
Okay. That's the one I read a long time ago.
That's probably one of the worst ones, to be fair, but... That's also because that was like a sort of one-off, you know. The big problem with that series that people might not know is because it was serialized, mate, he actually killed off the character pretty early. He was like, right, I'm done. And then what happened is the public was like, we want more. So, mate, it was like Star Wars. They were like, yeah, sure. Here's the next Sherlock Holmes. And then just brought out war. And listen, some of them were still good. But, you know, by then, if you literally don't want to write more and you have to write more, you're going to mail a few in, you know. Not hating.
That Hound of the Baskervilles is one that's commonly taught in the US. But...
It's the most famous one, right?
Okay, I didn't even know if it was that famous or not.
Oh, no, it's usually the one that I think people most know.
Okay, interesting.
It's kind of like what they did to Doctor Who. Like, they should have ended that series after, like, the 9th season. But, damn, that's, like, nails on chalkboard right now. I mean, I used to love that series, but it's absolute trash right now.
But
it's like, there's a very interesting premise here, right? Like, sometimes people say, I'll take you in a sort of a weird spiritual philosophy dimension. Sometimes people say, right, the thing about truth, the thing about like the most fundamental aspects is you don't have to debate them and you don't have to make cases for them. You don't have to excuse them. They actually are revealed by taking away everything else. It's when you lift the veil, they just are and they're there. And so basically you can just show some of them and they'll have the effect. If you want to make lies, it's the opposite. It's smoke and mirrors. It's bringing things in. So one of the things that essentially, like, let's just say people who are evil do is somehow... because the greatest things tend to have an element of truth in them, they can't create from whole cloth. They can't just make a new series and make it Star Wars. Because Star Wars, at its root, takes from Joseph Campbell's amazing work of syncretizing world mythology. So what evil has to do is take an element of what was true and good and pure, and it has to twist it Which is why I would say in the modern day, when our culture is incredibly degenerate, everything's a sequel, everything's a remix, everything's a sample. You can still have a genius work with it, but you're never allowed to have that pure whole creation. It's why actually at the moment, he's a rare example of where I feel like they just can't sort of fuck with this guy's work. My favourite director for the last 10 years, 20 years, has been Christopher Nolan. Because even though he's making commercial movies, almost every one of them, even his Batman, that's his Batman. He did it his way, mate. He didn't take half that stuff from the comics. Movies like Inception, he just came up with that whole cloth. Like, this is amazing stuff. Yep. It wasn't like he took someone else's movie from 1950 and remade it with Brad Pitt in it or something, you know?
Yeah. I love Dunkirk. It was really good.
Good one as well, yeah, sure. I don't think he's ever had a miss, mate. I genuinely don't. Like, he might have had some that weren't 10 out of 10s, yeah, of course. I don't think he's ever missed.
I need to revisit Memento. I think that's one I haven't seen in a long time.
It's one of the all-time greats, mate. I love that one.
Are you on the Parasite hype train? Similar movies like...
Never seen it, mate.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't watch movies based on when they come out. I just watch them based on when I'm interested, or if I get on like a kick of watching that director or a certain actor. Like, basically, it's the same as I do in eSports. I just follow the careers of certain people I think are brilliant and fascinating, and then I watch everything they do. And then just like in a team scenario, if you watch the team, like if you were a fan of Astralis, eventually you basically got to become a fan of Team Liquid, right? You watch them so much, you get interested in their style, then you watch them play someone. So in the same way, if I watch a brilliant director, then I check out, right, who's the main actor in his movies? What's he done that was good? Right, who was this other actor? That guy was interesting. I start following down rabbit holes. So I'll get to Parasite one day. My problem is, in my opinion, that is the number one most overhyped director in movies. Because he's done a couple of movies that were god tier. He has one that's like actually like, really high up on my list. But because, I don't know if you noticed this, but it's always been the way with Asian foreign language cinema that Westerners watch. It's like anime, mate. Half of it's an affectation for your identity. Some of these movies are brilliant. Some of them are just movies. And the problem is the Westerner doesn't know which one's a popcorn movie and which one's a genius movie. So like half the people I've heard rave about the Parasite movie, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment on the movie. But just the way that they're talking, there's people who don't at all use film critical theory or anything like that, who are acting like they're acting like it's like a teenager saying, like, I like the works of the sonnets of Shakespeare. It's like, can you ever name anyone else who did poetry, mate? What are you talking about? Like, that's just an obvious thing to say if you're a hipster, isn't it? Like, you can say it. You're just trying to be cool. I think the cool person is, like, I'll give you an example. You know, when I gave that list of like my top 10 movies of all time and one of those like AMAs or something, you do notice the movie Clerks was on there, which I think was made for like $30,000, you know, like it's black and white. Half of it's dick and fart jokes. But it's just a straight fire movie that I could watch every day of my life. I don't need to pretend that actually Bicycle Thieves from 1935 or whatever is my favourite movie. I'm not insecure in that way. I guess maybe I'm just old enough, you know. I'm kind of past that.
Vertigo's alright. I mean, I'm not a film expert, but I watched it and liked it. My favorite comedian was hyping it way before the Oscars, so it's not because of Oscars that I saw it. And yeah, I mean, watch it. I don't think it's a waste of time. So it's a good movie if you like.
You mean Parasite?
Yeah, Parasite.
Yeah, you said Vertigo, but I get you.
Oh, sorry, because
I mean, that's another classic movie they always list you, right? Yeah.
But in my head it's like this movie, like nothing is happening. I mean, it's fine, but it's just made it from a different era.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so Parasite is good. Yeah. Anyway.
Duncan, are there any newer sci-fi books recent release that you're super into? Because I know that's a subject you kind of got into.
That's the problem, mate. I just don't exist in this age. Hey. Like when I listen to music, I just go and I get like, right, what's this? Right, this is a prog rock band I like. What was the album they did in 1979? Like, I just start listening to that. I'm not the guy bumping like, have you heard this? It's the latest rapper that just died that I pretend I'm into now. Yeah, just shit, bro. It's tragic he left us. Like, I'm not that guy, you know. So my point is, if it's good, it'll get in my rotation eventually. I'll get to it. But right now, for example, I'm reading lots of classics. Like I told you, I just read the Hyperion series. That came out ages ago.
Right. Well, I'm sure you've read a little bit of William Gibson. He just had a book come out, and then
Sure. I like the old school stuff, yeah. 80s stuff.
Yeah, well, his newer book that just came out was really good. I was just curious if you heard about it at all or anything, or if there was something.
No, I haven't heard anything. There's the other thing as well. Like for a lot of like pop culture and art stuff, I'm not following, like, I don't even follow sites because let's listen, without going into one, I'll just put it this way. You guys are gamers. You know what absolute garbage the gaming press is now.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of what you want. It doesn't give you the insight. It doesn't give you that. It just gives you a fake story. It tries to sell you the game. It's a bunch of idiots that hadn't even played your favourite games, that can't even play the game, that don't know what they're talking about. They're just, half the time haven't even played through the whole game. It's just nonsense. I have to say, a lot of pop culture and art review type stuff is like that now. It's really hard to find legit people. Like, if you have someone who's super sick for like sci-fi books, who like reads the latest ones, but they're not an idiot, let me know. Maybe I'll check them out.
I got you. I'm going by my own reference because I just liked Gibson in the past. And
Have you read like all of the original stuff from the 80s? The like the 5 or 6 books in that, like whatever it was called, like the Neuromancer
definitely
lineage?
Multiple times, every book, yeah.
Does it stand up to that kind of level?
I mean, it's different. I'd say the newest sequel probably isn't quite as good as the one before it that came in 2015 called The Peripheral.
Okay.
It was really nice. I won't call it masterclass, but I thought it was like a great take.
I would certainly be open to reading. You know, like I liked a lot of those early books. Like I said, I thought they had some really genius ideas in it. You know, and crucially, the thing he achieved that I don't think anyone else has ever done since is he was talking about computer environments, but you could visualize it. That's what was genius about it. Like, put it this way, here's one of our problems. In the modern day, people's recommendation game is so whack, it's unbelievable. Like, if you knew, I'm not going to say their names, but if you knew some of the eSports people who were raving to me that I had to read Ready Player One, and I read some of it, and I felt so betrayed, I'll never take a recommendation from those people again.
Or like,
never again.
Or some shit.
Never again, mate. And these are intelligent people. Like, that's the problem in the modern day. These are people who are into like literature, but somehow that book got past the filter and they couldn't figure out that they like that as a guilty pleasure or for different reasons than I would. So why would they recommend it to me of all people? I have no idea. Because I was reading that like, this is like the Big Bang Theory of sci-fi novels. What am I doing with this? Like, get me out.
It's like a teen novel, right? That's what it seemed like to me.
It's like someone trying to list as many references that you might get. So you go, I understood that reference like a million, like that Captain America meme. Like, that's every person who read that book. Like, oh my God, a DeLorean? Yeah, I watched Back to the Future. It was like, everyone did, motherfucker. Come on. Like, what's clever about that, you know?
I'm just gonna throw out like a quick anecdote. You talked about how everything journalists say is like in gaming and in pop culture, they're all trying to sell you something.
They're all bought and paid for.
Yeah. Now, I'm just gonna tell you guys a little story. In my country,
where are you from, by the way?
I'm from Israel.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Calm down, everyone. Calm down. Just let the man talk.
Not talking politics, but I am.
Yeah, exactly. Just joking. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about something in the army. So military service is mandatory. I used to be like a military officer, like a lieutenant.
Okay.
Back in the day, and when I was in the military, I was in the military HR, and the thing they did most was advertise military service like a lifetime career of military service to women,
right?
To women, saying
that's like a feminist angle or something. I'm guessing.
No, not as a feminist, but as a marketing tactic, saying the army as a career is good for women and for being moms, and that's like
okay.
Not only is that not
seems like the opposite, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Not only is it not intuitive, I've heard so many women like being from the army. In the army HR and stuff, I've heard from so many women that that's like an absolute lie, dude. And they still do it. They've been doing it for the last maybe like a decade, and they're still lying to people. And the thing is, everything like the press it's pretty corrupt in Israel.
They're complicit. Let's be real. Yeah.
Yes, but it's like that in every like.
Basically, yeah.
I'm not going to talk politics. Sure, no problem, but. The press is corrupt, and you will never find even a single story about that on the press.
Of course not. Again, mate, let's just leave it like this. It's like I said. Think about what I said about the device interview. It's what they don't say that's the interesting part. Whatever they're telling you, they're selling you a line or something. But look at what they don't talk about. Because here's the thing, remember, this is the illusion that you're told about politics, about journalism. It's that these people just care about money and getting popularity. That's nonsense. If it was about being popular and getting money, the journalist would all be trying to win the Pulitzer Prize, right? And so to do that, you break the big story. Yeah. So all these criminals would get exposed. The opposite is the case. The opposite. Same in politics. Do they talk about the things, like if you go into a bar now, and I'm not talking about people who've watched politics and then are commenting on it. If you ask people about their lives, what do you think about the way the family should be structured? What do you think about the way your job is? Do you think this is going well? You never hear those topics on your television. It's the opposite. They give you the topics they want you to talk about. They don't talk about what you talk about. In fact, half the game of these worlds, we'll leave it at this and we'll go to an esports topic after this. Sure. Half the game that they're running in these worlds is to make you imagine, because you're watching a screen, knowing everyone else is watching a screen, we're reading Twitter thinking that's everyone else, reading Reddit thinking that's everyone else. They want you to feel like you're the one weird idiot in the village who doesn't think like everyone else, so get on board or be the weirdo. What they don't tell you is you're in the majority. They're the weird little minority. Anyway, that's enough of that. We made it vague enough. Look, I think we got through the senses there.
I have a slightly...
The only gulag I ever want to end up in a video game. So,
still on books, I have a question just on non-fiction. Do you still read that? Because I've heard you recommend like Inner Game of Tennis and so on. And in the past, I used to read all these personal development books, but lately I'm just, this just all seem the same and so on. Is that something that still have? They're still... interest you, or you just basically absorbed most of the principles?
I don't tend to read like self-help books per se. Okay. Like, for example, this is where, again, media can trick you by all they have to do is frame the debate and then you can never escape the maze. So, everyone said Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life was a self-help book. It wasn't. It was 12 Rules for Life. It was philosophical guidelines that you were supposed to ponder. Yeah. Right? If you think that's rubbish, throw every book of Buddhism out. Through every book of like business success out. They're all philosophy that's up to you to take away, reflect on, integrate it, and then apply it in your life. It's not a guidebook. It's not a flow chart. It's not like if A, do B or C. It's none of that. But if they present it to you that way, you think to yourself, probably just a bunch of nonsense to rip me off for money, isn't it? Right? Why has Jordan Peterson written 2 books in his entire life? That's not what a grifter does, mate. Have you ever seen grifters? They have a new course every month. And usually it's 90% of what was in the old course. But if you just get the extra 10%, that's going to be the secret to making it. This is why it's all nonsense. So what I would say is this. I've read a few that were like that. And even then, mostly, I do what that Naval guy says. I just skim it. I get to the part that's really good and useful. I take that out. I see if it works for me. But mainly the non-fiction books I like is like... biographies, oftentimes, by the way, not autobiographies, because listen, people are the ultimate self-deceivers, liars, and they rewrite history. I like the one where someone really smart studies the life of someone, could be like Orson Welles, Marlon Brando, whoever, and then they give like a coherent take from their side where they've modeled things about the guy's personality or how he did it. And what I'm looking for there is, first of all, it can be very interesting, but more importantly, I want to know what their process was. How did they think? How did they come to that great conclusion? What life experience led them down a certain path that might be wrong, might be right for them? And that's the most interesting non-fiction, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
Anything esports related we want to talk about?
Maybe just like a what if type situation.
Yeah, let's do it.
But not a what if in like, well, what if they made a reality TV show about gamers? I mean, I know there already are reality TV shows that reference gaming.
In what sense then? How would this one be structured? Give us your vision.
You know how there's like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a show called Ink Master. It's basically
I
a show.
haven't, afraid.
Well, it's a show.
It's about tattoos.
Yes, it's about tattoos, and it's like 16 people competing to be like the Ink Master, basically.
Okay.
So if you do the worst tattoo, you get eliminated. So I would take like 16 random people, and I would or whatever amount of people, and I would let them play games to find out if they have some type of talent in the in games. They don't have to be gamers. They could be gamers. They could be not, but you basically have to master like a bunch of games, like obviously League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Quake, or maybe even games you don't follow, like fighting games or racing games or Rocket League, a bunch of games. You think people, like you've referenced it in the past that you would believe Simple has some type of genetic thing that helps him be as good as he is. Maybe it has something to do with his brain or something to do with his
sure,
like with his mechanical skill, or both. So maybe it's not as rare as it seems. Maybe people aren't aware they're good at games, or they're not aware that their reaction time or hand-eye coordination or game sense is as good, or it has the potential to be as good in some field. Because obviously, like the best players in the world, like you said, some of them they weren't the smartest people. They just happened to be brilliant in the game. I think a show like that.
You want to see if we can find people like that, basically.
Not just find, it's obviously entertainment, but
right. There's two ways I could see this working, mate. Number one, I have to be Simon Cowell. That goes without saying, otherwise the show doesn't work, right?
As if you aren't already. Yeah.
Seems obvious, doesn't it? That's obviously first thing, and then secondly, the main problem with this show is if you play multiple games, no one's really going to be that good at any of the games. Like, if you notice, in the same way as in sports, it's actually very rare in American sports. Like, there's a lot of people could have been drafted to 2 or 3 sports, but the amount that would, like, if one of them ends up being a Hall of Fame basketball player, just go ahead and assume he probably wouldn't have made it in the NFL. Like, the odds are just so low. Such a different skill set. So I would say, like, as a generic thing for fans and, like, the general public, it could be fun. Like, if they were starting to level up at the game. The problem is, when you get really good at the game, it's not like the first 6 months, is it? It's probably like 3 years in. In fact, the ultimate secret of esports no one ever talks about. It's the reason why Moses always hypes the people who grew up only playing CSGO, is most people in esports, either you need the esport to have existed for 8 years and then you come along 3 years in, or you probably were like Olaf Meister, were nobody in 1.6 but played it, and then CSGO came out and then you were the best in CSGO. Like, experience is a massive factor. Skill just attenuates it,
The reason I brought it up was because in shows like the one I referenced before, Ink Master, they basically test you on different skills inside being like a tattoo artist or whatever. And there are many shows like that. For example, like Hell's Kitchen, Gordon Ramsay's reality show, where they basically test a different skill set that's obviously relevant to I lost the word.
Culinary skills.
Culinary, yeah. But my counterpoint to that would be as well, they're still somewhat connected to the core, and for games, I think they're more different, because basically, like, what you're describing, at least how it sounds to me, it's more like you're describing something like, okay, all the games, it's like athletics, yeah, but then you have 100 meters, you have dash, you have 5K, you have a mile, like technically it's running, but they're completely different sports because it's completely different, muscles and different trainings, yeah. So that's why, like, for example, if you take the guys and the women that do decathlon, within that decathlon, those 10 sports to put together, they're not amazing at any one of them, but they're really good at all of them. Like, they wouldn't be just doing that one. Yeah. So playing multiple games, some skills can be transferable, but how much is really transferable?
Here's what's the problem is, right? The problem is this is, if you want to do this as just like Hell's Kitchen, so it's just any randoms out there compete and they're going to fuck up half the time, we're all going to laugh at it, and then every now and then one will be good and you're like, ooh, not bad, yeah, you could maybe do something. We can do that. It'll probably even be really popular, like I say, if you put the right guests and hosts, and obviously you'd have pros guest appearance and teach them the AWP or how to use like the CZ or something, or do something in Fortnite. Apparently just like right-clicking or whatever's like the most genius shit ever, I don't know. I would just say that would be very popular, but I don't think, like, put it this way, when you bring up like the simple angle, like you wouldn't find anyone like that, in my opinion. I think there's literally zero chance. I don't think the format would even allow for it, essentially.
Yeah, that's kind of something I've been thinking about lately in terms of like maybe in-game leading or mid-round calls, like in terms of CSGO, is like how in-game leaders kind of use like the qualitative parts of like how a person plays versus like their stats or whatever, like sending certain players to certain spots on the map, like whenever, I don't know, they're hot or another player is just not feeling as well. It's like that qualitative like analysis of players is just like so weird, and I don't know. I just want to know more about it as time goes on, and like we're kind of studying like how the game like interacts with how people act as people, you know, because Simple's just like got such a unique personality in itself, like outside of the game, probably, you know.
Sure. Oh, here's the thing. I would be interested if it was a show where we took actual pros and we just had like for example, the reality show is we take a whole bunch of players and then, you know, you have 2 team captains. And it's like the UFC's Ultimate Fighter. You draft them and then you make a good team. I know everyone's going to go, they did that in Sweden. It's like, I don't care about that one. That was garbage. And if you knew the setup of it, like it was very limited who was going to enter that. I'm talking about like real pros. Like, for example, obviously the obvious one to make here, right, is a reality series of, right, whoever is in this month top 10 in FPL who isn't a pro gets to come on this show, and then we do a show like that. That would be straight fire, yeah.
Sick.
Maybe then we could find someone cool. I think that's probably a good angle, right? But the problem with that is, I mean, that's already a really esports idea. Like, I'm going to have a hard time selling that to the TV exec, you know.
NA would have some great personalities for that show, man. I don't
Sure.
know if you could sell that. I think that would be hilarious, especially if you bring in the drama. I don't know. Somehow.
Bring all the Leafs.
They're FPL players. I think the drama would just write itself.
Yeah.
As they're shooting it.
Sure.
I think so too. If the SC thing about LCS players is true, or whatever the fuck you said, Thorn. I don't know.
Sure.
Anything that has to do with TSM is probably going to be straight drama.
What about anything else esports related? Should we jump to another one? Let's do one last topic.
I had a question, if no one has nothing. Bringing it
Go
back,
for it, mate.
Bringing it back all the way to the beginning to basically G2. So they're ranked number 1, but basically the last tournament win that they had would have been like something small in like Malta or something in December, which was still on LAN. So do you think that these, you know, second place finishes, do they need to change something, or is it purely now the glass ceiling that they just have to basically break through psychologically that's basically is holding them back right now?
G2?
G2, yeah.
Is G2 being held back? Oh, you mean in the finals?
Yeah, in the finals. That basically, like, yeah, they're now entering, you know, they're entering the tournaments to win, basically, yeah, or are front runners. They get to the finals.
If you know, I don't know, like, I'm guessing from where you're from, you don't watch American sports, right?
No, not really. Mostly just the finals.
American sports are obsessed with the idea that winning and losing is genetic. By the way, amazing when you consider the political landscape that they have towards genetics and qualitative traits in humans. Okay. So it's like the ultimate paradox, by the way. As in, they believe, I'm not joking, that like Joe Montana and Tom Brady, like the quarterbacks that won the most NFL Super Bowls, they think those guys were just destined from day one to win. So, for example, they don't do things like multi-factor analysis, like what team did they have, who was the coach, what were the role play. Like they don't do that. They just go, they were the winners, they were in the big moment, they won, they win. Whoever lost to them was just a loser, right? Then you have the other side. The guy who always comes second, do that, he's just a loser, isn't he? It's just like that. Now, here's the problem I have with that logic. There are times when Joe Montana and Tom Brady were in position to win and they flubbed it completely, even to lesser opposition. There was times when some of the guys, I mean, a classic example people would say in the NFL of losers is this team that made the Super Bowl 4 years in a row in the late 80s, early 90s and never won. Now, here's the problem with that. If you want to tell me those guys aren't winners and those guys aren't clutch, how do they win every conference game? Every one. They won them all, mate.
Was that the Dolphins?
No, that was the Bills.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
So here's the thing. In that scenario, it's way more nuanced than people want to believe. So my problem is this. Generally, though, there are 2 trends, and you have to buck this trend. One is there's people who do just win. It's one of the things I always found very interesting about, like, for example, the NIP core. If they get to a final, their chances of winning are way above whatever their chances of winning the same game on a normal day is. Something about them, they've mastered winning in a sense, or they have players who are very good in those scenarios. Meanwhile, There are people like G2 now who are arguably better relative to their time, who if they get to a final, they'll find a way to lose. Now, some of that's character. Like, some of those people might get insecure. Some of them might think they've already done something by making the final. Some of them might even just be thinking, like the old TSM guys used to do, became Astralis. It doesn't matter that I'm having a bad game. I'm sure this guy next to me will have a good game, or this guy will win a clutch. They're basically the guys looking around. So I would say if you want to give like factors, things like how decisive you are, I would say a quality in life that's very, very key is you have to be willing to risk it all. Like, I learned this a long time ago. The reason why I kill it when I do events for my day rate and I do content and get paid more than other people, all these things, get amazing contracts from people, is because I understand the secret of negotiating. The number one secret is I'm always willing to walk away if I don't like the deal. And the ability to pull the deal means you will either get the deal you want or you walk away and someone else will give you the deal you want. If you go into the deal and you go like this, I really want this job. And you know what? I want 150,000, but if he offers me 100, I'll just say yes. Nah, that ain't me. And so in my opinion, look for the people like that. See the people who are like, we're in the final. That's great. Let's hope we win it. Tell you what, that guy's going to lose most of the time if you had to bet, or he's going to win maybe half the time if he's incredible at the game. Get me the guy where it's like they'll either bomb the semi-final or just roll that tournament because they're all in. That's the guy who'll win. There we go. That's a pretty good ending note, I think. Anyone got any thoughts on that before we wrap it?
That basically like Navi.
Yeah, in some ways. Like, put it this way, yeah. Like, think about Navi, right? The difference in Astralis' era between Navi and Team Liquid is everyone knows Team Liquid was better. They were even better head-to-head. But tell you what, Navi gets to the final, they'll win it, mate.
I'm even gonna stretch it and say that's the Zeus Navi era. Even though I know you're not a big fan of Zeus, but that
as a person,
yeah, I know. But
I mean, by the way, you guys will never know what that guy is like as a person. He's one of the worst people to ever be in esports.
I mean, look
as a human being, I'm talking.
Looking at his Instagram account, I suppose you could.
He's not pretending with some of that stuff. Like, yeah, he's the guy where, like, again, I can't go too far with what I say here because people's lives are off limit. But like, not a good guy.
Whatever. I'm not talking about his personality right now. I'm not planning on marrying him or whatever. But that was his mentality. I remember because I'm also fluent in Russian. I watched an interview he did like after they won the PGL Krakow. Maybe, yeah, the PGL. Yeah, he won the PGL Krakow major,
yeah.
And he basically said that during the game, during the semifinal versus Astralis, he basically told his team, guys, shut up. I'm going to come with something on the fly and it's going to work. And you're going to trust me and you're going to do what I say and we're going to win. And lo and behold, that's what happened.
I've got some bad news for you here, mate. You're not going to like this.
You think that's bullshit?
No. Some of his teammates tell the opposite story. They say in that exact moment you're describing, he said nothing. He was sat there. He was shook. And that one of them was like, right, fuck it, just do this.
Really?
Here's the problem.
That's nice.
Did you listen to the last episode by the numbers? If you know it's not a problem, mate, I'm not putting you on the spot, but did you listen to the last one?
120. Yeah, I did.
Right. Richard references that he's been reading Zeus's book. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And the reason he can't keep reading it is every story is like, so there I was again, genius, of course. I came up with all the genius stuff and did all the best things. Next thing you know, I'd only bloody won. Like, the guy just is a self-aggrandizement. So here's the thing. I'll definitely never say he wasn't a winner. He won a lot of championships and was in many good positions. And like, I would even say, I always thought he was pretty good at getting like the best out of some of his lesser players sometimes. I think that's probably an underrated quality of his. Now, what I like about him is he stuck to his style through thick and thin. So sometimes it won if it worked. Sometimes he had a million second places if it wasn't the best style. So I think I partially agree with you. But put it this way, I'll only ever judge things based on what I see. Like, any words that come out of Zeus's mouth, that may as well just be like a hairdryer blowing in my face, mate. It's just air, you know. It's not a person I trust, put it that way.
Sure.
I mean, as I pointed out by the numbers, he has provably lied about me.
Oh, that's
and said things that weren't even true, you know. So
that's a fair point.
You know.
Sure.
By the way, listen, he doesn't ever speak in English. He never spoke to people in the West, so it's not like we're the people that. It's not like I was personal friends with him. I know things about people from him, etc. It's not. Unfortunately, he's not like a simple where I've had straight heart-to-hearts and head-to-heads with that guy. All I'll tell you is one of the only times, like rare times I've ever even heard Zeus speak English was when he was at an after party at an Eastern European event and just went up to two girls, filming them at the after party and just started telling them to kiss. Good guy, right?
Yeah, I remember you guys referencing
quality
that
guy.
Ages
Quality
ago
guy.
by the numbers.
Guy, but put it this way, that's not even the tip of the iceberg. That's just a fucking fun anecdote, bro. So if that's a fun anecdote from that guy, holy moly, I can't even imagine, because I have to, sadly. Right, that's the end. We'll end on that note. Zeus, what a cunt. No, he was all right. He was a pretty good IGL, let's be real. He was a pretty good IGL, wasn't he? He was. Let's leave the personalities out of it, boy. This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Bobby, Dean Tanglis, Istar, JDubs, Jensen Goh, the Puyallup Tribe, Soliko, Spencer Green, Tobias Bernasconi, Xinged, and a special thanks, as always, goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask me a question in those AMAs I do each month. Do you want teasers for who's going to appear next on my content? Maybe you want to take part in one of those lengthy discussions about esports with me. Well, if so, then put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.